Thank you so much, and good morning, board. Thank you for a really productive day yesterday, and look forward to getting through a full agenda today. Important and joyful items on our agenda. We appreciate so much those who are here physically and those who are with us virtually, and invite your full participation. Meredith, please call the roll.
Holly Bloodworth.
Here.
Mike Borchers.
Here.
Mike.
Oh, thank you. Paul Long.
Here.
Justin Pate.
Here.
Julie Pyle.
Here.
Randy Poe.
Here.
Sharon Robinson.
Here.
Lee Todd.
Here.
Steve Trimble.
Here.
Diane Woods.
Here.
Lou Young.
Here.
Lawrence McCroby.
Here.
Preston Graham.
Here.
Secretary Link.
Here.
Dr. Thompson. Okay, Chair, you do have a quorum.
Thank you so much. So let's get started with our good news items. This is a real favorite of ours, and we have so much to celebrate. Recognizing our students, educators, and staff serving all across the state. So first I'm going to call on Julie.
Yes, so thank you. I'm thrilled to have this good news items, considering I was part of the process of this and got to be on the final interview committee. And shout out to Dr. Woods Tucker for leading that committee and keeping us on track. And it was so inspiring to meet all these educators and hear their stories and the fantastic things that they're doing in the classrooms and in the community. So this is thoroughly my pleasure to have this good news items. So Eminence Independence, Jennifer Montgomery named 2025 Kentucky Teacher of the Year. Jennifer Montgomery, an English teacher at Eminence Independent Middle School, was named the 2025 Kentucky Teacher of the Year by the Kentucky Department of Education on September 10th at the State Capitol Rotunda. Montgomery was also the middle school division winner. Barron County's Scott Johnson was the finalist from the elementary school division, and Boone County's Haley Dant was the finalist for the high school division. The 2025 Kentucky Teacher of the Year will receive a $10,000 stipend, and the two finals each receive a $3,000 stipend from KDE. All three winners received a custom design glass award commemorating honors. It's a beautiful award. As Kentucky Teacher of the Year, Montgomery also will receive an opportunity to serve a 6-month sabbatical with the KDE and will represent the state in the Council of Chief State School Officers National Teacher of the Year competition. KDE had previously announced the selection of 9 outstanding Kentucky educators as recipients of the 2025 Kentucky Teacher of the Year Achievement Awards on August 13th. These teachers were finalists for the 2025 Kentucky Teacher of the Year Award. The 9 Kentucky Teacher Achievement Award winners and their positions for the 2023-2024 school year are: in elementary school, Angela Nicole Harden with Peace Academy in Jefferson County, Scott Johnson, Red Cross Elementary, Barron County, Sarah Wallace, Robert B. Turner Elementary in Anderson County. In the middle school division, Jennifer Montgomery, Eminence Independent Middle School from Eminence Independent, Jessica L.F. Talley, Mount Washington Middle School in Bullitt County, Alicia Christine Thomas, Lexington Traditional Magnet School in Fayette County. In the high school division, Jamie Brown, Marion County High School, Marion County, Katie Cecil, LaRue County High School, LaRue County, and Haley Dant, Randall K. Cooper High School, Boone County. Nominations for the 2026 Kentucky Teacher of the Year Award will open December 2nd, and hopefully we have a nomination from every single district. So thank you.
Thank you, Julie. That was such an amazing event. To be there with all of you and the commissioner and see the enthusiasm among those teachers and their families. It just warms your heart, and I urge any of you who have the opportunity to participate in the Kentucky Teacher of the Year recognition. Now we go to LaRue County. Justin?
Thank you, ma'am. Very happy to recognize Kendrick Bryan Kendrick is a teacher from the LaRue County High School and has been named the 2024 History Teacher of the Year by the Gildner Lerman Institute of American History. This award was created in 2004 to recognize exceptional teaching K through 12 for teachers in outstanding contributions to American history education. Educators are nominated for this award by a colleague, parent, or student. And after receiving a nomination, teachers must submit various materials to be considered for the state award. And then winners are selected by a committee of educators and educational professionals in their state. As a recipient of this award, Brian receives a $1,000 prize, a core archive of American history books, Gildner Lerman educational materials, and the opportunity to attend and be recognized for the award at the Kentucky Historical Society's annual History Awards. With this award, Brian also becomes one of 53 finalists for the 2024 National History Teacher of the Year Award. The National Award winner will be announced later this fall, and they will take home a $10,000 cash prize at a ceremony on October 15th at the Harvard Club of New York City.
Wow. Thank you so
Congratulations, Kendrick.
much. Yeah, that's very exciting. Oh, wow. So let's keep the wow factor going here. Mike, you have an item from regarding a Western Kentucky teacher.
Yes, ma'am. Western Kentucky teacher Nora Ramsey is part of the team helping to rewrite National Board for Professional Teaching Standards. Nora Ramsey, a 20-year veteran teacher, is one of 8 National Board certified teachers from across the nation, invited to take part in the 3rd revision of the National Board for Professional Teaching Standards publication, What Teachers Should Know and Be Able to Do. First written in 1989, the book is a resource specifically written by teachers for teachers. The goal of the book is to support educators by maintaining high standards for what accomplished teachers should know and be able to do by explaining and breaking down the National Board's 5 core propositions for teaching. The 5 core propositions mentioned in the book are: teachers are committed to students and their learning. Teachers know the subjects they teach and how to teach those subjects to students. Teachers are responsible for managing and monitoring student learning. Teachers think systematically about their practice and learn from experience. And teachers are members of learning communities. Ramsey has been involved in numerous associations and organizations, both locally and nationally. She was the 2020 Kentucky Education Association Teacher of the Year and earned her National Board of Certification in Literacy, Reading Language Arts, Early and Middle Childhood. Congratulations to Nora.
Wow, thank you so much, Mike. And it's good to know that Kentucky teachers are playing such a profound leadership role within the profession. The work that they will be doing is content-based, but it's content-based on how you help students access, engage, and own that content on behalf of their own interests and issues as they develop to discover their own new questions. And it's exciting work. Lou, you have the
thank
next
you.
item.
Good morning, and Dr. Fletcher, I have the privilege of recognizing 2 of your team KDE folks this morning in the Division of School and Program Improvement. These 2 KDE team members have been named to leadership positions with the National Association of ESEA State Program Administrators. These folks are Ruth Swanson, who is a KDE branch manager, and she was elected to serve as a regional representative and Title I Part A program consultant. Emily Mead has been elected to serve as a secretary to the NAESPA board. NAESPA is a membership organization made up of State Elementary and Secondary Education Act program administrators and their staff, and it ensures compliance with federal regulations. The organization works to see that all children, especially those living in economically disadvantaged conditions, have the opportunity to receive a high quality education. So as Chair Robinson said, it's lovely to see Kentucky KDE agency folks having a national footprint impact on the work of ESEA across the nation. So congratulations to Ruth and to Emily.
Thank you so much. For our next item, we'll ask Randy to tell us about news from KSB.
Sure, it's indeed a pleasure always to talk about KSB. KSB acquired new Braille reading devices, which are major for them. A shipment of 15 new Braille reading devices is a game changer for the students at the Kentucky School for the Blind. The new Monarch devices are cutting-edge Braille readers with a multitude of other features and a larger display to improve the learning experience for blind and low vision students. They were delivered to KSBA at a ceremony on September 5th. Each device is about 5 pounds and around the same size as a 15-inch laptop. The new device is an 8-dot Perkins Braille keyboard, pan up and down buttons, direction pads, Android navigation keys, and a 10-line by 32-cell refreshable Braille display, which renders lines of Braille and technical graphics simultaneously. The 10-line refreshable Braille display is a large leap from previous technology, which only allowed one line at a time. The new devices are supposed to level the educational field for the blind and low vision students. And these an excellent device, and students obviously love these compared to what they were using. So once again, anytime we can update equipment or facilities at KSBA and KD, our other facility for the deaf there, it's a great day. So I'm honored to bring that to everybody's attention.
Thank you, Randy. That is good news indeed. And our last item for this meeting, I'll turn to Holly.
Yes. Well, I'm incredibly proud to give a shout out to Henry County High School student McKinley Painter, who recently received the Yes I Can Award during the HCHS Homecoming Pep Rally on October 4th. Through the Kentucky Council for Exceptional Children, the Yes I Can Awards celebrate the accomplishment of children and youth with disabilities who excel at home and school and in their communities. McKinley was honored with the Yes I Can Transition Award, which recognizes students who have gone above and beyond in developing skills and abilities that have led to success in post-secondary education, vocational training, or independent living. Brittany Rozelle, KYCEC President-elect, praised McKinley by saying, "We are proud of your efforts and the excellent example you set for others. You have shown us all that with hard work, courage, and determination, we can reach our goals." As a state winner, McKinley and his family are invited to an award ceremony in Louisville on November 25th during the KYCEC conference, and we're thrilled to announce that McKinley will also be nominated for a National Yes I Can Award. Let's all wish McKinley the best of luck as he continues to inspire us with his incredible achievements. Congratulations.
Oh, wow. Let's give a round of applause for all that wonderful good news. Thank you all so very much. And the next item is board sharing. This agenda item is included on every regular meeting of the board. And this is where we ask board members to raise issues not included on the agenda for the purposes of clarification, a referral to a committee, or scheduling for future board review and or action based on a consensus of the board. We have board members serving away from the table and really demanding assignments. Let's see. Anybody want to start? Diane? Well, we've got Reverend, we've got Dr. Thompson here, so I'm sure we'll get, I elevated you. I was thinking of the continuum work. Okay.
First of all, it's been a fabulous, fantastic, educational September for me. I've had the ability to attend several different meetings and conferences, not just to be there in the audience setting and being a sponge, but actually sharing what's happening in the state of Kentucky with several different organizations. So that I don't get real passionate, I'm going to stick to my notes that I put together and try to stay on task, because I could talk all day about beginning with the end. And September is a special month for me anyway, because I celebrated my birthday and even celebrated at one of these conferences that wasn't was wonderful. It was okay. It's the job. You know, you got to do what you got to do for the greater good. But beginning with the end, the Continuous Improvement Conference. Wow. If you have not been, you are missing a blessing. I saw Julie there, but I was so busy running from this session to that session and meeting old friends, and the energy and the enthusiasm of the state. We're not only just looking at research, we're looking at what works, what's the best practice in classrooms, small districts, large districts, medium-sized districts. Everyone has a story to tell, and everyone's doing a lot of good things. I wish there was a way that we could just, if I could just clone myself and be out there in the districts continuously and see what's going on. And it's just a special feeling. It was my second time going. I've already signed up for 2025. Everything going right that I will be there. The commissioner there making the comments. It was just a fun time. The food was good. The place was convenient, Todd, where it was in Lexington. So it only took me an hour to get from my house to the venue, but just beginning with the end in mind. I just want to let Dr. Foster, I really appreciate, you know, I would send her, you know, are you sure I'm registered? You know, what I need to do? Do I need to send you some money? Who was very, very helpful to getting me that taking place. So that was the end of the month. So let me back up to the first of the month. As you know, I came before the group, and I'm going to stick with my notes, Steve, so don't roll your eyes at me anymore. Also glasses on. Put on these readers from Dollar Tree so I can see. Since my April 29th presentation to the board, in which I shared the scope of the work of the Commonwealth Education Continuum K-12 Educator Workforce Group, this group has been very busy. And I'm so glad to have my colleague here in K-12. I mean, P-12, we're just, you know, K-12, got P-12 here now. Big guys running with the big dogs. And being with the individuals in that end of the spectrum has been so helpful. And as we talk and share, the main goal, always keeping kids first and doing what we can. Not just cradle to the career.
I heard gray the
And
other
I've
day.
heard gray
Cradle
too.
to gray.
Yeah, you know, and that's what we need to think about. And that makes so much sense. So why haven't we used some of this common sense that we know works? Okay, the K-12 Educator Workforce Group that I serve on, and we have certain 3 norms that we always begin the meetings with. Put students first. I mean, that's the whole discussion. That's the ball of wax, because we as adults can do other things and focus on other items. We're putting students first, their interests. Engage key voices in this work, from all the way from P to post P12 on over. Because in the end, that's what it's about, and that's what is going to make our community strong if we're focusing on what's going to happen in the end, beginning with the end in mind. I've got a spot about that too. And there's no one perfect solution. There's no one perfect solution, because we're all made differently and we're all different and we all require different things. So as the group has met, talked with several different institutions of higher education, people at post-secondary, what do we need to really focus on? What's one thing that we could do to make a big bang for our buck? And what we have decided to focus on, and some may agree with it and some may not, is the principal retention. We know that principals have, the research is showing that they have an outsized impact on school culture, I'm from Kentucky, and teacher recruitment and retention. If we look real closely at a lot of teachers that are in the field, once they begin, if they don't have those mentors that mentor there, that support, a lot of times they'll say, I'm leaving, because the culture and the climate in this school is not conducive. So we looked at our work and we categorized principals in 2 areas: aspiring, those that are in P3, the principal prep program, P3, and then option 6. What are they saying that they need to be successful in the classroom, in the school? Because to me, when I was school principal, I always thought as a school as my classroom. And they talked about a non-supervisory mentor. This was the item that came up consistently among all the respondents. They do not want their supervisor to be their mentor, but unfortunately, it happens all too often. Secondly, more time to shadow and observe exemplary principals, and they are all over this state. This is a pay issue for the novices, not the option 6 candidates. Development of soft skills, and we can continue to hear that. And I think about that back to my days when we had Maslow's hierarchy of needs, where we that safety security rung that we satisfy before we can teach them anything. If they're in their programs and districts of this group of P3. Now, current principals that have been in the business for 3 to 5 years, possibly, they're saying they're needing, for them to be effective, mentoring and coaching from master exemplary principals, administrators, support for professional growth. Development of soft skills came out very high again. Conflict resolution, motivating and inspiring growth, how to effectively use and communicate with data, how to effectively delegate. Those skills are things that they are asking for. Ongoing development for observing teachers and debrief with others about what they saw and why. Not just what did you see, but why. Peeling back that layer of what is actually causing the issue here. Professional development is led by seasoned exemplary principals. Retention, we unanimously agree that is a huge leverage point. How do we retain these individuals? The data, we reviewed data on principals and we noticed a slight increase in turnover broadly, consistent with national trends, and particularly in schools with higher free and reduced lunch status. We really hope to get additional data on why principals might be leaving, but that data was not available. This led us to want to support principals even more so that they might stay in their positions. Supports and survey. As we reviewed the current available supports through various channels, we noticed that most are aimed at aspiring or brand new principals. And think about that. Most of what we do when we're working with individuals is with aspiring or brand new principals. We brainstorm a number of supports that the state and our districts might prioritize and are currently surveying principals, both current and aspiring principals. And Danielle Pickens is the chair, not the chair, she's the facilitator of our group. And the discussions are so rich about what we can do. Now, the question then becomes, do we have the courage to do it? Do we step out on faith and do it? How you can help, how all of us can help. We've did a survey. Unfortunately, we're not getting the amount of results that we expect. We all have a sphere of influence groups that we can tap into and say, please complete the survey, which closes on November the 8th. And Meredith will have the link on how to do that. We're in the process, after we get all the data, we'll draft a report and present it to the total CEC work group, which I apologize, Commissioner, well, everybody knows that anyway, that he is one of the heads. There are the three chairs, the Lieutenant Governor, Commissioner of Education,
Dr. Thompson.
Oh, I
The
forgot.
president.
That guy. The Rev.
Rev, he'll just kick me under this table in a minute. I won't forget then, will I? So I've done, that's the two things that has happened in September. Outstanding. But what was really exciting too is being in Alexandria, Virginia on September the 11th through the 13th, when my birthday was on the 12th. And so at the National Association of Boards of Education, and to hear them, and there were only 10 people in that group from 10 different boards. The one furthest away was from Hawaii. And they were, they'd be talking about different things and they would say, oh, well, yeah, Kentucky's already doing that. And I said, yes, very well. not trying to be pompous or anything, but it was just gratifying to see where we constantly are getting so much negativity that there are people at the national level that are recognizing some of the good things that are happening. So I'd like to briefly share this 20-pages of notes I have of the conference.
I'm going to call time.
And I know you will. Okay, the conference goes, and listen to this, and remember that this is the National Association of State Boards of Education. So everything that was done applies to us as a board member. First of all, we talked about the conference goals. What are the three things we're going to do in these 3 days that we're here? examine the complexity of navigating personal beliefs,
Mhm.
board leadership responsibilities, and government systems to improve outcomes for children and youth.
Yeah, okay.
I think that's something that we all need to think about. And I know I need to think about, so I won't put it on anybody else. But my own personal belief, because we can get very passionate about our personal beliefs, our board leadership responsibilities, and the government systems to improve those outcomes. That was conference goal number 1. Conference goal number 2, study collective impact, systems thinking, and adaptive leadership frameworks. And number 3, identify disparities to advance equitable, Paul, outcomes, recognizing that race, class, and culture impact outcomes and opportunities for all children, Okay, the print resource that we used was this book. And you can see my little clips in it where I've read through it. Trying hard is not good enough. Trying hard is not good enough. How to produce measurable improvements for customers and communities. Because we can spin our wheels trying, but it's be like sitting in a rocking chair. It gives us something to do, but we don't go anyplace. Focus topic was results-based accountability. And the definition of results-based accountability, and that's been around a while. RBA is a disciplined way of thinking and taking action that can be used to improve the quality of life in communities, cities, states, and nations. The building blocks, listen to these building blocks: common language, common sense, and common ground. Now, as we define those things, common language is not about English versus other languages. It's a fundamental need we have to understand what people mean when they say something. Common language. Common sense. Any successful human enterprise starts with the end in mind and works backward to the means. Common ground. That's the political nature of our work as board members. Okay. If you want those repeated again, or if you'd like a copy of my handout, I'll give it to Meredith. So continuing on, our second meeting is going to be, the other big thing that we talked about was systems thinking and iceberg, looking at what's under a problem. And the one that keeps popping to my mind is this absenteeism. So what really is going on that's keeping students out of school? Are we really focusing in on that? Or we're just saying, you know, he's marking them absent, giving them whatever we need to give them to make sure that they get there, but really taking a deep dive, for lack of a better word, into that. So that's some of the things we're going to be talking about again. They will be at the conference in Louisville. All 10 of these groups that were there, 10 boards that were represented there. And it was just a good time. And we'll be doing a session that we as participators will be helping to facilitate. So if anybody wants to join, come and see me help facilitate. I would appreciate that. But there's some really good sessions going on at NASB, and people are looking forward to coming to Kentucky for all the things that Kentucky has to offer. So that's the 3 things that I've been doing in September, and just so thankful for the energy that I see across the state, the enthusiasm, the knowledge, the commitment, the leadership, fellowship, and the pride that our state, we should be all have in our state, no matter what we're doing. Thank you.
So
Madam
thank
Chair.
you, Diane. It really does bring us back to the discussion of our board goals. So as in the interim, maybe we'll get a small group of us to look at those goals and drill down on our ways of being accountable and keeping track of how we are addressing those goals, and get, further develop our intentionality with respect to those goals. And I appreciate the discipline
We have all
that
the
you.
stakeholders at the table.
Exactly.
Thank you.
So, Louis, pick up on some of Diane's work and share your sharing.
Thank you, Chair Robinson. I'm happy to. Moving forward, thank you, Diane, for the NASB plug. The conference, the annual national conference of the National Association of State Boards of Education, will be here in Louisville, October 24th and 25th, with a pre-conference day on the 23rd. So really looking forward to welcoming our State Board of Education colleagues into the Commonwealth. Also in NASB land, I'm going to be doing a NASB webinar tomorrow. It's an ed tech webinar, and I was invited to feature the work of the outstanding work of Kentucky Educational Technology System out of the office here at the department, and the work that's happening. I had the chance to serve on the National Ed Tech Plan, and so featuring the work of Kentucky and the way that Kentucky has moved to really lead the nation around educational technology and implementation district-wide in a predominantly rural state is really impressive. So I'm thrilled to share that tomorrow. Feel free to tune in.
What
And
time is
then,
that?
good question. It is 3 p.m. Eastern tomorrow. And I think there is a registration link. I also, like Diane, had the opportunity to attend a conference, Rhonda and Jennifer. It was with your Egghead psychometrician buddies, the RILS conference, named after our own Ed Reedy here in Kentucky, sponsored by the National Center for Assessment. And I was invited there to feature Kentucky United We Learn's work. The topic and central focus of the conference was the consequential uses of high stakes assessment and accountability. So one of the things they wanted to hear from Kentucky, Hawaii, and New Hampshire was how state boards and state agencies are thinking about engaging the broader community in innovation around assessment and accountability. So of course, Kentucky was a prominent feature there. And so that was a delight. All of your friends say hey. So it was really a pleasure to be there and to represent Kentucky. And like Diane said, it's always a treat to be able to say great things are happening in the Commonwealth. So thank you.
Yes. Oh, thank you. Dr. Poe, please.
Yes. Yeah, thank you. I also had a good news item to share, and I'll try to be brief. I know that we're running over on this time now, but I have to give a shout out to our special education and early learning division within KDE. I attended the DOSE Institute. It was a district spotlight. They had at least every district from the Kentucky was there, but there were 10 districts that were highlighted at the conference for some outstanding work. And due to time, I won't read these. So Meredith, if you could send the thing to all the board members so they could see the great work from the early learning department. But Barron County, Davies County, Garrett County, Jefferson County, Harlan County, Henderson County, LaRue County, Lawrence County, Lyon County, and Martin County were all had fantastic project representative there. An example, Jefferson County, the one that I talked a lot with that particular day, based on family survey data, Carissa Gibson, Comprehensive Coordinator of Early Intervention Service Specialist, and her team in Jefferson County, held a community power event designed to recognize at-risk youth in the areas of perseverance, leadership, creativity, advocacy, and citizenship. And like I said, there's so many outstanding things, and due to the time, Meredith, if you'll send that so everybody can read from those counties, and then we can put that in the record for the public record also. It's just outstanding work. So I commend Greta and her team. They just did some outstanding work, and it was a privilege to be there. And just as Diane said, I recommend it. Anybody that can make it in the future to make it. Some of our most challenged students in the state are doing some wonderful things, recognizing all Kentucky students in the state. So I encourage you to attend in the future. I think they host it once every 2 years is what they do. So in 2 years, it would be great for more to be there. So thank you for giving me time to give a great shout out to our special education and early learning department division.
Well, I want to thank all of our board members for the work you do here at the table, the work you do away from the table. And Julie and Dr. McCorby have just become members of the committee, the whole school, whole community, whole child subcommittee.
It's a mouthful.
That's
a mouthful.
All in there. And I don't know if you want to report at this meeting or if you are going to report at subsequent meetings, but so I will give you the floor. Thank you for serving in that way. Dr. McCorvey, you want to speak to, I appreciated your comments when you were invited to join this important group and help us unpack this important concept with real actionable ways of helping our students feel whole and embraced. So I'll give you the floor.
Yeah, so I appreciate being able to serve on it again. At the core of my belief as an educator is I'm here to serve the students, most importantly, but also colleagues throughout the Commonwealth. I met, it was a whirlwind on this past Monday. I met, and then an hour later, we had our first meeting. So I didn't have a lot of time to prepare. There was a lot of just introductions to what the committee will do. So there wasn't a lot for me to report this time, but I look forward to being able to report in December when we have that meeting.
Thanks so much, Julie.
Well, I wasn't able to attend the first meeting because I was on vacation and the time difference, the schedule didn't quite work. So, but I met with Mr. Tackett on Friday beforehand, and he was asking for other organizations or people who should be at the table. And so I gave him a number of suggestions, especially for our MLL populations, because that's an underrepresented populations on a lot of our committees. And so I gave him some really good connections for that.
Great, thanks so much. And we'll be looking to hear more from that important work. Now we're going to move to the report from one of our primary partners in this venture, Reverend Dr. Aaron Thompson, President of the Council on Post-Secondary Education. Welcome.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I will tell you, though, just to put it in context, when I was young, I thought about being a Baptist minister, so it was close. I figured out that I probably would serve better in other roles. God called me to other places, I'll say. Some good news to report. I only try to report good news, by the way. Preliminary enrollment looks like we're up, significantly up again, almost 5%. Last year, we were one of the leads in the nation in enrollment increase. This time it looks like we're going to do it again. So makes me very happy. I'll say as an example, KCTCS is starting to rebound significantly, which makes us happy. KSU is up 35% as an example. So we're doing some good stuff in that area that we feel good about. Preliminarily, also, another good news to report, looks like our college going rate has gone up some. First time in 10 years, if that's the case, right? So we hope that holds true in the final, but it really looks good. And I appreciate everybody around this table and out there who's working with us, because with the FAFSA debacle, I call it, some of you know I spent a lot of time in DC around this issue and other issues. It just was not a good year for this. I mean, it was a terrible year, and Kentucky is heavily affected because we are a high poverty state. And many of our students, as you well know, that are the lowest of low income are the last to apply. And in many cases it's hard to get them going. And so that FAFSA is important. So I really thank all of the partners out there, led by our Gear Up group, which I'm happy to really work with families and others, along with Kia and some others in K-12, Pritchard and others, working to try to get, this FAFSA caught up. In Kentucky, we've done pretty good by comparison, but we're down. And I'm an old enrollment manager, so on the back, this is not official nor with good methodology, but it looks like if we didn't have this, we probably would be up about 2.5% more. in enrollment. If you want to think about what this year could have been, if we didn't have that. And as you all know, FAFSA now, it looks like the biggest rollout won't be until December 1. We even hope that holds true. We had a lot of dates given us last year over and over again, and it just did not work out. So this is significant for us. So I don't want to downplay. So for us to be up, that's significant in light of what things that didn't look good. I'm on a tour again. I try to do one of these every couple of years. Last week, this tour took me to Shawnee. I had a chance to visit the aviation portion of Shawnee and really just Shawnee as a whole. But talking to those kids, I walked out. I was so energized. I have to tell you, folks, you should have been there with me. And we talked for about an hour. We talked about aviation, but mostly we talked about goals and hopes and dreams and what's keeping us from reaching it and what we need to do to get there. And I felt so blessed afterwards. These young people said, can we just stay another hour? Can you just stay? And it was just fantastic. And so we're on this tour to talk about what it's going to take to build Kentucky's workforce, but what it's going to take really to build it out in a P20 sort of manner and not just what I call on the back end of the conversation, talking with employers, talking with political leadership and others around the state doing those sorts of things. I'll be in Pikeville. I go to Pikeville and Paintsville and Whitesburg and all those Prestonsburg tomorrow and be at Big Sandy and other places. I'll be giving out certificates to many of our folks who've been on substance abuse, but has gotten off, and we've helped them to get a certificate whereby they get to be counselors and then move through the pipeline on to become a licensed folks. So I'm happy to be there to do that this week. Speaking of educational attainment, we looks like we're up again. So Kentucky is now over 55% toward this 60% goal by 2030. We are exceeding the trajectory, and that makes us happy. And we only count degrees and certificates that give sustainable wages. So be clear, that means that some that don't make it into the count. So we don't just purely count certificates, right? We look at the outcomes and look at what it's bringing to Kentucky as far as a return on investment. The continuum, once again, you probably saw this. We were judged. Last year, we were one of the 2 best in the nation, along with Minnesota. This year, we are the best, the only best, and Minnesota came and visited us to see what they could do to improve. And I want to thank all those that are involved. And they were really impressed because we have policymakers and others there to talk about what we can do. And as you all know, we put in place a lot of these ideas that were brought to us. Everything from bridge programs to our Kentucky Advising Academy, working with the school counselors that love it, by the way. And a lot more other items that we're doing that is really showing significant increase in the kind of outcomes we want in Kentucky. Later on, I'll be with the commissioner visiting Randy and his group in Northern Kentucky. We look forward to that. Julie and Mike will be there with you all, and Ryan Quarles will be coming with us too, I think, to really talk about how we advance this partnership even at a deeper level. Speaking of KSU, we are working with the National Center on Education and the Economy. We're reformulating the entirety of that education unit to really focus on what we need for tomorrow, especially around teacher education. So we hope to have that new redesigned system in place over the next year or so. So look forward to that, and we know that you'll want to work with it. Our more connective tissue that I know the commissioner and I will be talking about more will be the graduate profile. We're really moving along with that really fast, as a matter of fact. And we're now starting to have measurement for all these 10 essential employability skills. And we're measuring whether or not students, we're working with faculty and staff to really come up with the measurements that are needed so we can move forward to that. We hope to have a general education policy in the next couple of years that would incorporate all of these as the primary competencies for general education, which really makes me happy. Performance funding, we have that in place again because we were told by the General Assembly last year that we shouldn't use underrepresented minorities anymore and redefine
Mhm.
that to underrepresented populations. We're in the process of doing that. We've met twice. We will meet again later on in this month to hopefully get down and see how we use that 3% kicker that we give in performance funding in a way that still will not leave people out. I'm just going to say that clearly, because if you look at everything from enrollment increase and the gap closing, Kentucky is really one of the leading states with their underrepresented populations in that gap closing. So we hope to be able to have a definition that really won't leave our students out. We did increase. We found out that we were not moving the low income nearly as much as we should have. So we had a 3% kicker there. We moved that to 8%, which is a huge number. And because we have to get that movement going more. I mean, we were getting it going, but it takes a lot more effort, a lot more resources, as you all know, for the wraparound services to make that happen at the level that we need to. We also added a metric, adult learners, into this group, which really made me happy because that's an area we haven't moved on. We have a lot of Senate joint resolutions given to us. KCTCS is doing their own to see what it's going to take to make that system even work better, Justin. But CPE has two. One, looking at whether or not we should have an osteopathic school, a veterinary school, and whether or not we should allow our comprehensive institutions to offer PhDs. So that's one of them. The other is looking at basically a business model to see what would be workable to take to have the Hazard Community and Technical College transform itself into a 4-year institution. So we'll have both of those done by December. In your list, I think you may have this. I won't spend a lot of time on it. We've got a lot of cool things coming up and webinars and other items. One big one is the early post-secondary opportunities webinar. And for the sake of time, I want to tell you just how our data are showing that if a student has a early post-secondary experience, the outcomes that are taking place, it's unbelievable. So whether this is IB, advanced placement, or dual credit, now our numbers on dual credit's huge, but we're showing that just as an example. If you happen to be low income and a person of color, if you take one dual credit course, you are actually exceeding at higher levels than others in post-secondary. So this is a serious thing that we are going to work on. We're going to focus on quality more. We're going to focus on alignment more, all those other items. But there is an early post-secondary opportunities webinar on October 8th. I guess it's coming up, and November 12th and December 10th. So hopefully our Access to Success unit's doing that. We also are going to have a webinar October 17th, removing barriers to adult learner re-enrollment. We will have our healthcare workforce collaboratory on October 30th at the Campbell House. You all are invited as my guests if you want to come by. And if you want to see some cool things happening, what we're doing with our healthcare industry is just absolutely wonderful. And they put a lot of their skin in the game to make sure that's happening. Our 2025 Student Success Summit, this is our 14th, will be taking place February 10th and 11th at University of Kentucky at the Gatton Center. I hope you all can show up for that. And our next CPE meeting will be November 22nd at Bellarmine University. There's a whole lot more to talk about, Madam Chair, but you gave me 10. I took 5 to try to catch you up. I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Those are 5 Aaron Thompson minutes.
5 Aaron Thompson.
Italian.
That's their Reverend.
Right.
Reverend. Aaron, you certainly bring passion and spirit to the work that and to your reports. It is an honor to have you here. It's an honor to have you as a partner, and I'm awed by the results that we're getting, and I think you inspire us all with determination based on, this glimmer of recognition of the steps that we're taking now and the direction that we're going. I guess I want to say, I want to ask, how can we unite our voices to get ahead of the game with our policymakers in the General Assembly so that we can ask for what we need in order to continue in the direction that we're going, rather than have to spend any precious time and resources helping them, responding to some of their directives based on what we perhaps haven't been able to share. So I guess I'm urging all of us to get more specific with an offensive agenda that is designed to help us perpetuate and speed up the momentum that we have underway. And I mean, I'm going to call on Secretary Link. I mean, we've got other agenda items, policy that need policy recognition and support. And I'd love to see us get a little bit more, I'm just going to say it, let's get real about what the needs are in an aggressive way so that we can help the General Assembly see how to help us and not leave them to try to figure out how to help us.
And if I might add on to that, one of the most unifying objectives across those folks is the educator workforce and how we can find ways together to be really synergistic partners as we plan for the 25 session, but especially for the 26 session moving forward.
And let me just throw a couple of things in. I think Secretary Link will probably talk about our SWAT team with Secretary of Economic Development, myself, and a variety of us and him to really come together. And that's what we're trying to do. Really focus on what's good for Kentucky around economic development, how we bring together. I think you're absolutely right. Our education workforce is what we've determined is our number one workforce out of. And so we have to work on that. We need STEM educators, Dr. Todd. We have to. We have to get more of these students up and running. We need, honestly, more master's degrees in what I call content areas for our teachers to go in. So it's not just teacher workforce as a whole, it is that, but it's also how we are targeting those. And I think that's one good example. We've got, and I think our legislators are willing to listen to it. I think if the commissioner and I go and sit down with the folks, I think we got ears. And because I really believe that they want to move this agenda forward too. The other thing I will add, though, and Madam Chair, I think you're asking exactly the right question. I think the other thing I want to add is that if we're not to a point now to where we've got enough good data and we've got enough good people around the table that are leading this effort, and I think our aid continuum is a great example of that, then it is time to even double down on the kind of outcomes that we want. Mm-hmm. At least in the short amount of time I have left here in this role. I'm a little bit older than the commissioner. So.
Well, one of the tools that I want to see us use a lot more aggressively is the tool of accountability. You said what you were going to do, and this is what happened. So it suggests the direction in which we ought to be proceeding. Secretary Link, what say you?
Good morning, Madam Chair, Madam Vice Chair, Commissioner, members of the board. You're singing music to my ears. This is something that we live and breathe every day in the Education and Labor Cabinet. I think that education and training, the efforts that we put forward in these areas are all to help people get into good careers, careers that they can support themselves, their families, their communities. So this is all very exciting to me. Reverend Dr. Thompson, I will say that I am an ordained minister. I had to perform my niece's wedding a couple of years ago in Dallas, Texas, so I had to become ordained to do that. So you can call me Brother James, I guess. I don't know. But to pick up on what Dr. Thompson said, the statewide workforce and talent team, the SWAT team, we presented, a few of us, Dr. Thompson, myself, Secretary Jeff Knoll from Economic Development, and President Quarles from KCTCS, along with the President and CEO of the Kentucky Chamber of Commerce, Ashley Watts. we presented in unison to the Education or the Economic Development and Workforce Investment Committee of the General Assembly. And I was very pleasantly surprised at the reception we had, the positive comments back. Our cabinet has sent multiple people for testimony before legislative committees. And I really expect that and hope that this legislative session in 2025 will have a significant focus on education and workforce development. And I think Dr. Thompson's exactly right. The communication with the legislators themselves, one-on-one or in small groups, are going to be critical to help convey the message of the importance of the work we're doing. The General Assembly focuses a lot on Kentucky's workforce participation rate, and they lament that we're lower than other states. And I think there are statutory measures that can be taken to help address that. Also, there are going to need to be funding initiatives to help address that. So I think as a united front, perhaps we can gain some traction and gain some yardage on achieving those two things in this upcoming session and going into the budget session of 2026 as well. Sometimes this is a long game, and we try to make incremental progress through the next session and then the session after that. And we have 3 more sessions in this administration to make as great an impact as we possibly can. So I look forward to working with this board and with all of you to try to achieve that vision. Just real briefly, I'm sure time is sensitive right now. Just an update from the cabinet. A lot of the things that I report at every board meeting are somewhat repetitive, and I apologize for that. These are things that we continue to work on constantly, and we grind every day and every month and every year to make progress on those. But some highlights that I'll mention, our Everybody Counts initiative that I've spoken with you about before. We are making some progress in Jefferson County and JCPS to try to partner with other college and career readiness partners like Kentuckiana Works. The Workforce Investment Board for that region is starting up an After the Tassel initiative with JCPS. We also have U of L Cardinal Rising that is present in some of JCPS's high schools, as well as the Kentucky College Access Center. And much like the SWOT philosophy, we all have great intentions. We all want to see great results, but we have limited resources and we have limited coverage. And by working together and maximizing the resources we all have collectively, I think we can have a much greater impact on the lives of these young people who are looking for their next college or career step. So we're looking to coordinate our efforts and make sure that we're utilizing our resources effectively in every high school in the JCPS system. So that's something we're excited about. I've talked before about reentry employment, recovery employment for those in justice involved or substance abuse issues. We are having some success with the skilled trades who want to participate in helping do training and education inside the institutions so that when those folks leave incarceration, they are prepared or better prepared for the outside world and for establishing a new career. We are also increasing our focus on veteran employment, not only in Fort Campbell and Fort Knox and Bluegrass Army Depot here in Kentucky, but nationwide. How can we reach other military installations across the country and promote Kentucky from an economic development standpoint, an education standpoint, a quality of life standpoint, and all those things that make Kentucky a great place to live and to work. Our unemployment insurance system, which is long overdue, I've mentioned before, is in full swing now. The development is going very well. It's a very aggressive schedule, but that's going to be a transformative thing that happens in the next 2 to 3 years. So we're very excited about that. And then the last thing that I'll mention is a couple of weeks ago, I have a good friend who is the leader of the IB program at Tates Creek High School, and he's been nice enough to invite me the last 3 years to come speak to his IB classes. And I did that a couple of weeks ago at Tates Creek, and it gives me great hope for the future. Not only did we talk in a more presentation type setting, but after the presentation, I stayed for probably 30 minutes after and talked to students individually, one-on-one. And it's focused on, he asked me to come and talk about my career in public service and, you know, what led me to public service and what a good career that's been. And if a young person has that same type of vision, that public service is a good and worthwhile career to pursue. So that's my very brief report very quickly, and I'm happy to address any questions or comments.
Thank you so much, Secretary Link. I mean, it's such a joy to be working with leadership and partners who lead with the head and the heart and the spirit of service. And thank you so much for being there, being with us, and partnering on the path forward. The other I want to include in that triumvirate is our commissioner. Please, Commissioner Fletcher, would you make your report?
Absolutely. Thank you, Chair Robinson. Before I go into my formal report, I want to talk a little bit about everything that we've discussed over the past 2 days has been about being proactive. We talked about goals. We talked about legislative priorities. And by being proactive, it also includes building relationships. Dr. Thompson talked about those face-to-face communications with legislators, with other people. As we look towards those goals, as we try to accomplish the goals that the board's setting forth and also our legislative priorities, it's also very important for us to sit down and talk to people face-to-face to build those relationships. And also, too, alignment. We talk about making sure that what we're doing at the department also aligns with those goals and making sure that we move forward. And again, a lot of things that we do, everything that we do should align with those goals and those priorities as we move forward. But I also want to take an opportunity to thank the board. The board pointed out so many great things that are going on here at the department. Some of the references was yesterday we talked about the Office of Legal Services and some of the work that we do there. The Office of Education Technology. We've been a leader in technology across the nation for years, for decades. The Office of Assessment Accountability and how we're recognized throughout the nation. The OCIS team, which Board Member Woods kind of stole a little bit of my thunder on my report here, but that's okay. That'll be just fine. Absolutely, yes, ma'am. All in. But with that being said, talking about the summit, then also too the great work of OSEAL with our special education and early learning. There are so many great things that are going on in the department and so many high quality people that work here each and every day. And I want you to know that we're working hard to align with the goals of the board and make sure our strategic plan looks the same. And I think by your highlighting our people, that acknowledges that alignment. So thank you for that. So with that being said, I will go into talk a little bit about my report, which some have been mentioned a little bit. And I think when you listen to this report, you'll also see alignment with the goals. Our goals of vibrant learning for all students, our goals of innovation, particularly in assessment, and also too, as Board Member Powell pointed out yesterday, those two goals can't happen unless the third goal of collaboration with communities also happen. You're going to see this in the report as I go through. So I'll start off with our last month, our education leaders from across the Commonwealth gathered at the Capitol Rotunda as the We League Computer Science announced $100,000 in micro grants to the Chamber of Commerce. These grants will strengthen Kentucky's tech talent pipeline by fostering partnerships between businesses and schools. This initiative will enhance the state's competitiveness in the technology economy and better prepare high school students for the tech workforce. By working together, we are ensuring that Kentucky students gain the skills they need for lifelong success while providing businesses with the talent they need to thrive. I'm proud to see these innovative partnerships taking shape. Again, collaboration with communities, key to success. Also at the recent local Superintendent's Advisory Council meeting, LSAC as we often call it, the Kentucky Department of Education provided an update on the Kentucky United We Learn Council's ongoing efforts to transform the Commonwealth's assessment and accountability systems. In our last board meeting, again, Board Member Woods pointed out, are we advertising this broadly? Are we getting this input broadly from people? And I'll say this work which is now in the study phase prioritizes innovation, personalization, and student voice. The council's goal is to create a system that supports vibrant learning experiences and accurately reflects student growth. This effort is a top priority for me. It's one of the reasons why I applied to be commissioner, to build an accountability system that is truly meaningful to our students and to our communities. We're collecting input from 171 school districts through focus groups and surveys to refine our approach, and I'm encouraged by the active participation and feedback from educators and stakeholders. And we're talking about stakeholders including legislators, families, parents, guardians, teachers, principals, superintendents. And Dr. Brewer, we're over 600, as of last count, 640 survey results talking about what we're looking for in an accountability system. So that goes back to goal 2. The alignment with goal 2 is about having an educational innovation, particularly when it comes to assessment, but also goal 1, making sure that we have vibrant learning opportunities for all students. And already I'm seeing that in our student representative here with Preston. Preston has been very forthright in making sure that our students have that vibrant learning opportunity, and I appreciate that, sir. We're also honored we also honored outstanding educators in our 2024 Continuous Improvement Summit in Lexington, where 16 Best Practice Awards were given to schools. I have to say it was an honor to be there because 10 years ago this fall, I was a part of a team that received one of these awards, and it meant so much to be recognized, again, as with a school system. And as a matter of fact, Superintendent James is here from the school system that I worked in with Sheldon Clark High School. We were on stage to accept one of these awards and to be there with others to highlight the great things that were going on, not only in Martin County at the time, but also in so many districts across the Commonwealth. Again, it's just inspiring to see the commitment of our teachers and leaders who are all in. Again, who are all in. We want to make sure we get that out there, make sure that we know that we appreciate that hard work and dedication that comes each and every day from our educators. And when I say educators, I'm talking about classified and certified people, both. It takes the whole team to be all in to make sure that we have that success for our students. We want to make sure that we create those meaningful, relevant experiences for every single student, every single day. As we alluded to a little bit earlier, that's probably one of our best tools in the toolbox against chronic absenteeism, is making sure that experience is relevant. Now, there's other obstacles that we see with students each and every day, whether it be food insecurity, whether it be mental health issues. School systems have to address those. We have to work towards that. But also, too, to see those great initiatives that we're doing, it's a whole team effort. So again, to summarize, together through our initiatives like We Lead CS, our Reimagined Accountability System, we're building an education system that meets the needs of our students, our families, our communities, ensuring that every Kentucky learner has the skills to succeed. I think that our board meeting has not only highlighted that, but emphasized that over the 2 days, and will continue to do so, I have no doubt. Also, before I want to close, I do want to mention specifically Dr. Kelly Foster and her team with the Office of Continuous Improvement Support for their work for organizing the Continuous Improvement Summit. Not only does it highlight the great things that are going on in our school systems, but it also gives the opportunity for people to shine, and they need that. We need to have those opportunities. So thank you for Dr. Foster and also for the entire team, and also others that were mentioned here as they support the work here at KDE.
Wow. The reports this morning have just presented a truly amazing treasure trove of resources and that we have developed among our communities of interest, and many opportunities to link and leverage so that we are building a system that is from the cradle into the workforce and a productive, satisfying life of citizenship and community here. So I'm going to open the floor briefly for questions of all three of our agency leaders who've presented this morning, and see if I just want to give us a chance to think from the perspective of this partnership and how we might proceed. Justin, did you want to?
I can if you need somebody.
Well, you're in the center of it. Dr. Todd?
I want to mention that when I see Secretary Link and the preacher over here to my right and the commissioner, and along with the Secretary of Economic Development, we had some meetings since the last time we were here. And one thing that prompted that is that Secretary of Economic Development said that there are some companies that we'd like to get to come to Kentucky. We don't make it to first base with them because they're concerned that we don't have the top technical talent that they might need in order to grow their companies. And I do think that we're doing very well on the CTE certifications and those things, but we need to be putting an effort into the higher learning capability for the kids who are capable of competing nationally, internationally. My concern is that the funding we have for science educators is not enough to provide the professional development for our teachers who are supposed to teach science standards, and the new science standards has engineering embedded in it. Most teachers don't know much about engineering at all, and much less try to teach students who have never seen it before how to get there. I may have made this comment here before, but I'm struck by the comment that Wayne Gretzky, the great hockey player, made. He said, "Do good hockey players skate to where the puck is? Great hockey players skate to where the puck's going to be." We've got to make sure we're looking where things are going to be, because we've got to create some source, some percentage. I'm not downplaying at all the CT investment we're making, but I know a lot of kids who have greatly benefited from having the ability to come out of high school with a certificate or with an ability to go into some of the job opportunities that are out there. They're coming here now. But if the Secretary of Economic Development says we need some more firepower at the upper echelon, we need to be getting more professional training in the books to train these teachers how to excite those kids. I went through my employee base at DataBeam, which I started in '83, and you could not attract people to come to Kentucky for a technology job. So I had to grow my own. Out of the about 60 engineers that I had, 40 of them came straight out of the UK without any experience whatsoever. When IBM bought the company, they kept every one of them, so they're capable of living up to the stringent requirements of an IBM internationally. And some of them now are retiring with 35 years of experience in Kentucky. And the point I always like to make, when IBM bought DataBeam, they said, "What's your turnover with your engineers?" And I said, "How do you define that?" So how many engineers do you lose every year divided by the total number of engineers you have? I think we've lost 3 in about 10 years, because the East and West Coast, they'll go across the street, they got a new Whirlpool or something in their workout center. So we got a lot of things we can add. And I applaud what Secretary Link has talked about with respect to getting some advising into the schools, so we can tell these kids what's the difference between taking another dual credit course versus taking AP Calculus, which our commissioner used to teach. We're not getting enough kids to go into that area. I think it's going to have to be a conversation piece if we want to skate to where the puck's going to be. And I applaud what we're doing now, but I really think that there's some emphasis, and the lack of professional development in the last several years has just been woeful. And I think we can make a good pitch. When I see the 5 people I mentioned before talking to each other, it's just a wonderful experience. And that's one of the things I think we need to talk a little bit more about.
And Lee, I just really appreciate the way that you always remind us about skating where the puck will be. And I think Aaron mentioned it this morning too, the notion of a portrait of a learner or a higher ed profile of a graduate really points us in the direction of those 21st century and beyond, because we're a third of the way through, 21st century and beyond skills quarter of the way through, that will help teachers better prepare P-12 students for that post-secondary transition and then life where they are entrepreneurs and creators. So when we have creative contributor, critical thinker, and an empowered learner, half of our portrait really speaks to that set of high expectations that you always cast as a vision for us. And I think that's really important. And then finding ways to move from there to post-secondary and into the workforce, I think is that really holy grail that we've been searching for as a team. And these partnerships speak so powerfully to, a very bright future in that regard.
Do we have any type of, I'm going to go back to you and Diana, something both of you said, you have 35 engineers that you think will be retiring from IBM.
I have more than that, but they'll be retiring with 35 years of experience.
Okay.
Started me.
And Diane mentioned mentoring.
Right.
Do we have any program which allows people with engineering and math backgrounds to mentor our teachers, our students, because all that experience, it walks out the door. We don't want to lose their expertise into just retirement. We would like to have them. And the point Diana made when she was talking about that was, it's not always good to have supervisors be mentors.
Right, exactly,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
See the connections that we can make, and that's a very, very important leverage point.
And-
Julie?
Which I was going to just pull right back in that's where it comes back to the parents and the communities being involved and invested to be mentors I think a lot of the problem is the kids don't have the confidence that they feel like they can take the AP courses. And parents don't necessarily sometimes have the confidence in their kids. They want them to take maybe the least resistant route because they want that high GPA.
Yeah.
So it comes back to building that confidence in the students and the parents and saying, you guys can do this. This is completely possible. We have support and mentorship programs in place to support you to get to those high goals.
Yeah. Justin, please.
Yes, ma'am. So, a couple of things I was thinking about as Aaron and Jamie were speaking, is the intentionality that we really need to create for these tracks that these kids are on. And, one of the things I have noticed being with KCTCS, there's a whole lot of conversation about, well, a kid either needs to be college ready or consider KCTCS. When KCTCS is absolutely college. And, a certificate in welding is post-secondary training that leads into a wonderful career, which is the goal of all of us in higher education, is putting kids, adults, whoever they may be, into that career pathway for relevant jobs in Kentucky. But, I think about some of the things that we do from a policy standpoint. And I'm not going to pick on math. I'm an English teacher, so I feel like that's my natural objective is to pick on math. But do it in English too. I'm sorry, But just with math, we say that every kid needs to have Algebra 2 going through high school. But if you look at the number of career tracks that require Algebra 2, it's actually a pretty low percentage that need that track. They need math.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Statistical analysis, ratios, proportions, so many things are critically important, finance. But we say Algebra 2 because we say we want every kid college ready. So even from a policy standpoint, we're not identifying all of the career opportunities available to young children. Because if you're going to get on an Algebra 2 track, well, you have to do that in middle school to start preparing to get there. Well, then that creates additional burden on math instructors because now they're trying to pull, get people here when they've got some students who are excelling and need that extra attention there. They can't get that because they're giving them to the kids they're having to pull. We talk about absenteeism. Well, that's another policy thing. So now we're trying to force feed an algebra track down a student who knows they're never going to need that. So it's hard to engage that student. Where I think we've got a chance from a policy level to step back and create, maybe some alternative statistical ratio proportion type preparation that will lead to wonderful careers in multitudes of things, and then give teachers the chance to focus on those Algebra 2 students to get them where they need to be.
Exactly.
You know, those are the kinds of things I think of when I think of all of this work being done, where, you know, KCTCS does have a niche in higher education. The University of Kentucky does have a niche in higher education. Yet, you know, we're a policy board that looks at all. So it's those kinds of things that I think about sitting around this table as to what is our role to help with intentionality, focus these pieces where they need to be, because the whole does matter, but the pieces are what the students care about. And that's what's going to allow, you know, the Secretary and President Thompson and Dr. Quarles, all these people to sit and say, okay, now we've got these pieces with intentionality that plug into this SWAT group's work to move the Commonwealth forward.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, can I-
Amen. I'm going to call on Secretary Link and then back to Dr. Thompson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just wanted to mention, and I think it's hopefully germane to the conversation, the cabinet recently acquired a program called Ready for Industry. And it is a virtual program, 15 to 20 hours online, that can allow a person, whether it be a young person or an adult looking for a career change, to virtually experience an advanced manufacturing environment or a healthcare environment. The program can be altered to address a certain job. And we are currently working with Blue Oval right now as the employer to utilize this tool as sort of a pre-screening mechanism to allow people to kind of experience an advanced manufacturing or a battery manufacturing environment. And the purpose is to allow that person to either say, yes, this is what I want to pursue. Now that I've seen this, I'm even more interested in it, or no, this isn't what I thought it was. And it really helps with that pre-screening so that the employer and the person don't have to go through that process face-to-face or in some other environment. That could be very helpful to helping expose people to a career path that they might not otherwise have the chance to explore. So I just wanted to throw that out there.
Dr. Thompson.
And
quickly.
I'll say this quickly, I promise. But I want to bring some of this together because I'm hearing what Dr. Todd's saying. And by the way, I'm a statistics professor, so now the calculus, I couldn't do calculus, but I can do statistics. But there's three things that we need to be intentional about here. One is that there is the output. We just opened up several more engineering schools to really try to keep up with what's needed in Kentucky. But we don't have the input. This is why I think we need professional development at a heavy level in science and math and so on. We do have a math center, but we don't have a science center as an example. We also need to have, when we talk to people in post-secondary, we have very few people graduating with the middle school math or science or high school physics and so on. So we're going to have to build that pipeline somehow. And if not, we're going to run in deep trouble. That's why I'm pushing for more master's degrees that are in these areas as an example. But, you know, professional development is crucial here because things are changing all the time. And so I hope we're able to pick up on some of that conversation.
Dr. McCorby.
Thank you. I just kind of wanted to, I would feel bad by not speaking up here, but I kind of want to echo Dr. Pate's comments along with the others that have spoke on this topic, that as an arts teacher, so I get to come from it in a different direction, and specifically music, I think that we should speak to the fact that we have many students in across the Commonwealth that wish to move forward into career paths that are artistic in nature, so in the arts or in music, but are weighed down by requirements. And speaking to Dr. Pate, weighed down by those requirements, needing to pick something so that we can check off that proverbial box of being post-secondary ready and meeting that benchmark. So I think that we have a lot of room for growth and opportunity to continue to work on those alternate pathways to help provide other career paths and other options for students that are genuinely interested in a subject field, but feel that they are being pulled away from that in order to meet a benchmark in another category. And I think that it boils down to possibly being unfair to the students, that we're forcing them not to do what they want to do in order to check off a benchmark.
That really helps us to kind of make sure we keep the aperture open and inclusive of students who are going to need math. And my granddaughter's in art school, and she has long acknowledged that she's really glad she worked hard in geometry. She wants to be an interior designer. And she didn't like it when she was doing it, but now she, we have to help students understand that we are preparing them for the multiple doors that they may encounter, the multiple opportunities that they may experience, and we want them to feel enriched and fulfilled by those opportunities and not threatened. Dr. Fletcher, please help us close this part of our agenda. It's going to be hard to leave because we are really engaged, and I'm fully enjoying it.
My comments here is to tie what Dr. Todd, Dr. Pate, Dr. Thompson, also Dr. McCroby all together. One of the things I'm very proud of are the current graduation requirements that you see across our state. For example, I pulled them up just so I'd get them correct and make sure I had all of them down. But if you look at our English credits, we have 4 English credits. English 1, English 2 are required. In math credits, 4 math credits are required, but you only have to take Algebra 1 and Geometry, whereas you can take others. And I'll come back to your point here in just a second about Algebra 2, Dr. Pate. In social studies, it's 3 social studies credits. In science credits, it's 2 lab-based, a minimum 2 lab-based, and a 3rd science credit. Other credits are 1/2 health, 1/2 PE, visual performing arts. This is very innovative because it looks at the individual student, and you have to base that on their individual needs. But the problem is the workforce. We're struggling to find teachers that can teach our high-level art classes, our music classes. It's hard to find a band director that is at that high level. It's hard to find a physics teacher. As a matter of fact, I taught calculus and physics. I was one of the few graduating physics teachers in the state back 20, almost 30 years ago. Big numbers. I was going about 10 years as a superintendent. But if you look at that, our pipeline, Dr. Thompson alluded to, our pipeline for teachers is shrinking somewhat because we're not able to find those that can go into the advanced coursework. So how do we recruit those teachers, our top level students, to go into that advanced coursework? So what really happens is when we don't get those advanced coursework, districts are, to survive, they just offer the minimum. So maybe they can only offer Algebra 2 as that 3rd or 4th math course. So a lot of times that's what you see districts do. We offer Algebra 2, and well, that's the only option they have to take. But maybe not able to teach AP statistics or AP probability and statistics, or even if we look at our AP social studies courses or AP science courses. As a matter of fact, it's very difficult to find someone that can do AP chemistry, AP biology, AP just biology. Let's just take that back. Chemistry, period. Not just AP chemistry, but chemistry, period. Physics, period. So the underlying problem here is how do we dig down and make sure that we increase that pipeline so that we can really fulfill these graduation requirements and give students the absolute best opportunity and more opportunities to take exactly what they need. I think we're positioned for that. The key is making sure that we have the workforce moving forward.
This has been a really, really rich conversation, but we also have some action business that we need to address, Board. So if you will, please turn with me to our agenda item number 8. And I would ask Associate Commissioner Kelly Foster and KDE Policy Advisor Matthew Courtney to please come to the table and present an amendment to 704 KAR 3:365.
Good morning.
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 Today, we bring to you Amendment 704 KAR 3:365. All the changes to this regulation were made to comply with changes to the federal regulation. I have with me today Dr. Matthew Courtney, my policy advisor, and he's going to talk to you a little bit more about those changes.
Thank you.
Good morning. Just a couple of changes here in this regulation for you today. First, you will see a handful of technical changes. Anytime we open a regulation, we have to go in and sort of update some of the grammar and syntax. So that's, if you see just one little word changed here or there, that's what's going on there. The substantive change to this regulation includes a new required list of artifacts that must now travel along with a complaint and with the various appeals that complaint may go through should a recipient choose to file a complaint. You can see that list for the first time on page 3 in your regulation, and it continues. You'll see that repeated throughout the regulation. Just briefly, that list includes a description of the statute and regulatory requirements that the complaint is based around, a description of procedural history of the complaint, findings of fact supported by citation for the complaint, legal analysis and conclusion, corrective actions, a statement of appeal rights if applicable, a statement regarding the department's determination about whether it will provide services, and all documents reviewed when reaching a decision. And like I said, you'll see that list a couple of times throughout the regulation because those materials will follow that complaint through the entire appeals process. These complaints can be appealed all the way to the U.S. Secretary of Education. So it's repeated a couple of times through there. And as Dr. Foster said, all of these changes were made to remain in compliance with changes in federal regulation.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Are there questions, comments? Thanks for bringing this to us. I would ask the board to entertain a motion to approve the proposed amendment to 704 KAR 3:365 complaint procedures for programs under the Elementary and Secondary Education Act of 1965. Is there a motion?
I so move.
Thank you.
Second.
Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Julie. We have a motion and a second. I'll call the question. All those in favor of the motion to approve this amendment, please say aye.
Aye.
Any
Aye.
opposed, say no. Thank you so much, Dr.
you.
Foster and Dr. Courtney. Our next item concerns a waiver request of the board, and Associate Commissioner Matt Ross and KDE Division Director Jay Ritter will present this item. Thank you.
Good morning. Matt Ross, I'm the associate in the Office of Finance and Operations. I have the Right Reverend with me today.
And don't let too many people hear that.
Wow. So I thought we'd back up and let me set the stage. You know, we have some new board members, so I'd like to let you know, sort of what we're doing. We're shifting. My office, the Office of Finance and Operations, has facilities, school and community nutrition. We have a lot of operational side, right? So we're shifting from the instructional, which has been a great conversation this morning, to more of the infrastructure and operation side. So over the last few years, the General Assembly has really taken a lot of, has really left a lot of the over the ability to do facilities. They've given it to the districts rather than having state oversight, right? So we've had a series of pieces of legislation that have really empowered districts. One of the areas where the state still retains control is over acquisition of property, right? So you think a school building is going to be in existence for 30, 50, 100 years. So, and ultimately the title to that piece of property is retained in the name of the Commonwealth. So the state of Kentucky still has, an important role in the oversight of, where a school building is located, right? So we're sort of coming from that direction this morning. So we have a couple requests for waivers. And they more or less are over the acquisition of property on behalf of where a school district is going to purchase property. So that's sort of the angle we're coming from. There is a statute. So the Kentucky Board of Education has regulations concerning the purchase of an acquisition of property, certain things, certain requirements and standards that these properties have to meet. Under certain circumstances, there's a statute that allows the Board of Education to waive its own regulations. However, it cannot waive health and safety. It cannot waive civil rights. So these instances are appropriate for waiver. And so I'll let Shay sort of discuss. I think we have one on behalf of Paris Independent, and then we have a few under for Martin County. So we'll start with Paris, and Shay can really address the specifics, but I wanted to set that stage as we started.
Yeah, and typically we invite the superintendents along with these waivers in case there's additional questions that we can't answer. And I believe we have Superintendent McCauley from Paris online if you do have some more detailed questions. And Paris is a really good example of a fairly straightforward waiver request. There is a piece of land, of course, in Paris next to a body of water, I assume a creek, which is in the 100-year floodplain. And typically you cannot build in a 100-year floodplain with state funds. So this is to actually add some additional parking next to Greyhound Stadium. I believe, if I understood correctly, this is one of those rare opportunities inside Paris. So it really did come up at a good time for them. But the waiver request is specific to building a parking lot. So typically what my staff will do is once we start talking to the district, and some of these waivers will take a very long time to get to the board because there's a lot of moving parts. Property acquisition is by far one of the more complex things that my staff work on. They do a wonderful job, and they do a lot of digging in behind the scenes to make sure that we make sure that everything is in order before we bring it to you all. And with this request, we've done several of these floodplains. I think we just did one for Dayton not terribly long ago at the same board. So it's fairly routine. We do have districts that are next to some pretty low-level lands. So I'll be glad to answer.
So
any
I think
questions.
essentially they're wanting to build a parking lot across the street from their stadium, their board office, and their middle school that may be in the floodplain, but it's ultimately just a parking lot.
Yeah,
So
it's about 1 acre, a little bit over an acre, I believe.
I assume they'll still be able to insure it.
That's up to the insurance company. I'm not sure how that would work in a floodplain. I know like downtown Frankfurt, you can still insure your home. The cost of that is probably a bit prohibitive though, but
like you said, it's just a parking lot.
right, it's just a parking lot.
Most of the time, I think just the general, what you would put back annually for upkeep is enough for a parking lot. And it's probably about the same the insurance would cost. So, I mean, parking lots usually aren't a big deal.
Yeah.
Other questions? Comments? Seeing none, thank you so much for the presentation. I would ask the board to bring a motion to approve the waiver request from the Paris Independent Board of Education related to section 4:4:B, parens B of 702 KAR 4:050 building sites inspection approval. Is there such a motion?
So moved, Diane Woods.
Is there a second?
Second.
Without objection, I'll call the question. All those in favor of approving this motion, please say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed, please say no. Thank you. The motion carries. Thank you so much. Thank you, colleagues from Paris Independent, for joining us. I would now ask Superintendent Larry James to please join us at the table. And we will hear a presentation regarding the Martin County waiver request.
Sure.
I can speak on this if you want.
Yeah,
Matt.
go for it.
This was quite a bit more complicated than a parking lot. This one is a pretty long-term plan for Martin County. Of course, we're very happy to have Superintendent James with us. He can help explain some of the finer points of it. I believe this is a very important property acquisition for Martin County. And for the new board members, there's a process in which local planning committee develop a facility plan. And part of that is property acquisition. And in order to sort of, I think, simplify these requests, we've broken it out into 3 separate requests. So it's a little easier to digest rather than packing it all into one big waiver request. So I'll let Superintendent James speak to this project, or acquisition rather, sorry.
Okay. We built a new high school approximately about 5 years ago. We opened it up. And at the time, it was another big tract of land right beside of it, adjoining it. We recently, while we're trying to acquire the property, we traded, we was kind of old-fashioned horse trading, so to speak. We're going to trade our school properties, buildings, once we declare them surplus. That could be 5 years, that could be 15, 20 years. But when we declare them surplus, we will in turn give it to our county, local county. And they in turn, I think it's over 100 some acres that we're getting in its, in its place.
So if you're ready, Chair, I'll jump into the first
Yes,
waiver,
please.
if that's okay. So the first one is for a forbearance agreement. This one, again, is a little different than the ones we usually bring you. Typically in Eastern Kentucky, these agreements are needed for underneath the property for mineral rights. And if you'll read through the notes, this is a little confusing. The Kentucky Transportation Cabinet actually has the mineral rights down to 150 feet, but beyond that is where we're requesting a waiver. There, I think 120 plus property owners have those mineral rights beneath 150 feet. And if you look through the regulation, there's some language in there about it shall require a forbearance agreement to ensure surface support. That's what we're requesting, requesting to waive on this case.
And the next, thank you.
Go to the next one.
Who owns the surface rights to the 100 acres?
So the Transportation Cabinet owned it and then transferred that to the fiscal court.
So the Martin County
The
Fiscal
Mountain,
Court owns it.
right, and they're willing to do this swap,
Okay.
right? So
Yeah, the fiscal court actually moved it to the Martin County, I want to call it the Economic Development Authority, which is conveniently this land was right next to their high school. So it's kind of the perfect storm, I think, of acquisitions.
Other questions on waiver request 1? Thank
All
you.
right.
Go to the next.
Jumping to number 2. I can get my
Easement.
This is for an easement. This is the good old traversing easement that we talk about quite a bit on these acquisitions. I'm convinced that traversing easements are on every piece of property in this state now. Every time I come here, I have another one in front of you all. But basically, the district and the consultants are trying to get this easement waived, but at the time, it's not moving quickly enough. But in order to make this acquisition move forward, the local board, Martin County Board, wanted to request a waiver on the traversing easement. And if in your packet, there's actually a map that shows that easement on the property, which is, I believe, Kentucky Utilities, if I remember correctly.
I think it's quite a large easement, and they envision that they'll be able to get that released.
Yes, our attorneys have it. Our board attorney is working with, it's actually Kentucky Power. They say it's not a problem, but we've still not got it back from Kentucky Power yet. And it was actually, the easement was in place before they ever even put the road through there. So I guess it's just what they do in Eastern Kentucky is what I understand.
Yeah.
Questions? Thank you. Go to the third.
All right. Finally, the last waiver request.
It's not actually a waiver.
Oh,
right?
sorry. This is for your all's approval. Thank you, Matt. This is actually board approval to allow them to the site development cost to exceed 10% of the project budget. On page 2 of the staff note, the total project cost is approximately $33 million. Of that, just a hair over $4 million will be the development cost. This is very common in that area. We've had Johnson County in front of you all some time ago with the same issue. Anytime it exceeds 10%, we have to come to you all for approval. And in this case, it's about 12.17%. So not terribly above the 10% rule.
Questions regarding the development cost waiver. A complicated piece of business. I know you've worked hard to get to bring it to us. We appreciate it. And I'm going to ask the board to consider a motion to approve the district's request for the following. 1, a waiver of 702 KAR 4:050, waiving the forbearance agreement requirement for acquisition of a site for the construction of the new Inez Elementary School. 2, a waiver of the easement restrictions in 702 KAR 4:050 to acquire the subject site for the construction of a new elementary school. And 3, approval by the Kentucky Board of Education to require a site for the new Inez Elementary School for which the acquisition cost and the site development cost exceed 10% of the projected budget. Is there such a motion?
I'll make that motion.
Thank you, Steve. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Justin. Question?
Yes, just, I was taught not to borrow trouble, but you haven't heard back from Kentucky Power about releasing the easement. If that were to not happen, this is null.
They would not be able to, you would not be able to build on that section, right? Or
Their attorney has told ours it's not a problem. They're in the process of releasing, the easement.
Okay,
It's just not happened yet.
okay.
And right, so this would be a swap too. I think that if the swap didn't happen, that because of the easement, then it would really revert back to each party being in their original position, I would think.
Okay,
So.
moot point. Okay, thank you.
Other questions? Yes, Holly.
Could you just tell me what it means when it says 126 people own the rights to the minerals after the surface level?
Good question.
Right, so we could talk about the broad form deed back in the John C.C. Mayo days that, I think commonly in Eastern Kentucky, mineral rights were bought and sold. And those sales of mineral rights go back, 100 plus years, right? So you just have different parties through whatever means you've owned them in the past through wills and different families buying and selling the mineral rights. But just the concept that somebody owns the coal under your feet doesn't, just because you own the surface right does not mean you own the mineral rights. So
it's when people sold like where your house is, you own to the center of the earth and to the top of the sky. In Eastern Kentucky and in other places too, West Kentucky too, they sell the surface but retain the mineral rights. They can retain the oil rights, they can retain the gas rights, they can retain the coal rights.
Mm-hmm.
And from what you're saying, I think that's what's happened.
Yeah,
that's what's happened.
So if somebody wanted to get something under your surface level,
right,
can they do it and still maintain the integrity of the structures?
They can do it and not maintain the integrity of the structure sometimes, right? But I think in a lot of conditions, like we've had in towns, right? They may not have the surface rights, but town ordinances or town laws say you can't mine under a town or whatever. So it's just a very common situation in Eastern Kentucky. A lot of these things would never be mined anyways. They may not be suitable for mining or, but I don't think mining is a real concern in that area. In that consideration. No,
We asked for the same thing before we built our new high school, but we just did it for that one piece of land. We should have gone, we didn't own the rest of it at the time, but now we're just asking for the rest of it, just like we did where we did our high school.
Just not familiar with the Eastern Kentucky stuff.
Holly, if I understand it correctly, basically the real underlying purpose is if Martin County Schools ever decided, you know what, we're going to get that coal out from under our property, they could dig down to the coal, but they can't get the coal. So it's not really saying anybody can come in and just start digging on their property.
Oftentimes it's too expensive to remove the coal.
Yeah.
Right.
That's the reason they don't do it.
Right.
It costs more to get the coal than the coal is going to be worth. And that's.
So it's not something you're worried.
No.
Also, too, a lot of times when you look at 126 owners, a lot of that goes into family and heirship, and if somebody has 5 kids and then they have 5 more kids, then they have, and then all of a sudden it's an exponential growth of how many owners. Now, it could also be businesses in there too, but when you look at the heirship, it could just however how many kids, it could divide out that quickly. And if you're looking at a piece of property that's been around as someone's owned for hundreds of years, how many generations of people would that be? Do you agree with that, Superintendent James?
Absolutely. It was a complicated mess. When we got the first property for the high school, then you get into one time their name is Robert, then they're referred to as Bob, and then you've got it's just, it's a mess.
The easy code's already been taken out.
Yeah.
That's right.
Surface.
They would have took the other out if it had been easy. That's right.
That's right.
Thank you.
Interesting. So I am going to call the question. All those in favor of approving these waiver requests, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Thank you. The motion carries. Martin County, carry
Thank you.
on.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. We'll now move to our discussion agenda, and the first item concerns the Boyd County update. Again, Matt Ross is going to make that presentation.
Good morning.
Please.
Thank you. We have 2 representatives from the Boyd County Schools. We have Superintendent Boblet and their new finance officer.
Mr. James, can you all hear us okay?
Yes, thank you.
So we'll go ahead and let them sort of catch you up on, I guess maybe I should start with, for the benefit of some of the new members, Boyd County found itself in a difficult financial position at the end of the fiscal year. The Kentucky Board of Education was able to help them out with a loan, which they are repaying over this fiscal year. And so as part of that sort of agreement, they are going to come before us and sort of give us an update on their financial position. And so with that, I'll let you all just go ahead and take it and give us an update, please. You're muted, maybe?
You might be muted, Superintendent Boblet.
No, now he's muted. Hang on a second. I think you're really low. It's what? Oh, you turn up your volume?
Bear with me just 1 second.
Hear you now, I think.
How about now?
Better. That's better. Thank you.
Okay, I apologize for the technical difficulties. Good morning. My name is Bill Boblet. I'm Superintendent of Boyd County Schools. I have Mr. Larry Barber with me, our newer finance director. And again, good morning, members of the Boyd County or the Kentucky Board of Education. Thank you for the opportunity to give you a status update on the current financial situation. Before I lend my time to our finance director, Mr. Larry Barber, I'd like to update the board on a few key items. On September 19th, our Central Office Leadership Team members and members of Dr. Kelly Foster's team had a very productive meeting where we set goals for ourselves as we move forward throughout this school year. The meeting focused on 4 improvement areas from the review. Mr. Barber and I will be focusing this briefing on item 3 of the review. Item 3 states that we will develop a comprehensive financial system that incorporates a formal budgeting process and begins with determining the needs of an area and is informed by a monthly monitoring process and includes all appropriate stakeholders. We do have that in place now, or at least working on that right now. And before I have Mr. Barber to speak, I'd like to inform the board that currently our enrollment, we talked a little bit about this impact of what our next year, fiscal year 25 will be. And our enrollment is currently 2,777 students. That does not include our preschool and Head Start. This number is down about 20 students from last year. And our current attendance percentage is right around 93%. Based upon the numbers in the previous year, this is an increase in our attendance percentage. So we're happy to report that as of now, right around the first week of October. Mr. Barber.
Thank you, Board. My name is Larry Barber, as Mr. Boblet said, and I've been the finance director since the middle of July, about July 15th. And this morning he asked me to come and kind of share with you some positive signs of encouragement that we've seen here since we last reported to you all in August. So I want to share a few of those things with you that I think will better help our position at the end of this fiscal year as well. The first item that I want to share is that our local board did pass tax rates that did reflect a 4% increase in tax revenue. So we were encouraged by that. Another thing that our board passed at their September meeting was a working budget that showed a contingency of $844,000, 745 contingency, and that translates to 2.9% contingency. That working budget included the repayment of the one-time loan that KDE had issued to us, as well as our bond payments as well. We did have, for the month of August, our utility tax receipts were higher than what our normal was, in amount of about $125,000 to $150,000. And that was due to a collection of taxes from a local manufacturer from a prior year. So those are increased revenues that we were not expecting as well, and are not included in the working budget. And then the SEEK tentative calculation that came out here within the past couple of weeks reflects $205,000 more than what we reflected in our working budget. So if things stay true to that tentative calculation, SEEK that was just released and the final in the spring, we hope that will garner us another $205,000 that were not budgeted as well. As Mr. Boblet said too, those are some things I think that will help us in the short term here, but we're also looking as to how we correct actions and maybe set some systems in place that will better help us to be in a better position as we move forward from this. And as Mr. Boblet said, the KDE management team came in and met with us and offered some suggestions as we work through some of these, especially in the fiscal responsibility as well. And I am happy to report that even before they came and made their visit with us, we had begun to discuss and implement and work on developing some of these strategies that they had given to us as well. Most of those were revolved around improving our communications between finance and other members of our leadership team as well. So as a result of that, Mr. Boblet and I have been meeting on a weekly basis with an agenda as we discuss items that may have come up during the week that we feel that both of us need to be on the same page and need to be aware of. Also, too, we've also worked on our communications with our principals, our department heads, and also those who oversee our grants as well, to make sure that they're receiving timely monthly reports so that they can keep an eye on the amount of money that they have budgeted to them as well, and then also discussing those items with them as well. And then finally, as we begin the budget process and begin to develop a budget committee that will meet to work more towards providing a more realistic budget. We have begun to develop some needs assessments as we get those out to try to find out what the needs are of our different principals and department heads, and also our grant overseers as well, so that they can let us know, and so that we can determine what the budget needs to look like as to the resources that we have and how we can best focus those monies as well. So just wanted to share those things with you, that we are hopeful and encouraged by some of these things that have happened here that we weren't expecting as far as revenue sources for the current year, and that we're also committed to moving forward as we seek to move forward in a positive direction here. So we thank you for your time. Thank you for your support. We thank you for the support of KDE, and I personally thank our district leadership too for their support as I've transitioned into this job.
Thank you so
Any
much.
questions, ladies and gentlemen?
Good question.
Thank you, Superintendent Boblett. It's so great to hear the update, and a 2.9% contingency is nothing to sneeze at. So that represents a very positive step forward. One of the things we've been curious about, and you've been very forthcoming to share with us, and that is about the engagement of your local Board of Education. How has that engagement been? Clearly, they approved the September working budget. Any other engagement with your local board?
Yes, ma'am. We had a working budget meeting, and we went through basically the entire budget for this year, line for line, roughly a 2+ hour meeting, hour-long meeting. Very encouraging from our board. They asked a lot of questions about certain topics. When we were trying to do the comparison between the last fiscal year and this coming fiscal year that we're in now. So that was great. We are setting up a future date for once we go through the budget committee and kind of have a budget tentatively prepared. We'll go through that with them again in the early spring. So they have definitely been on board. They are also, it's one of the items that we're working on as far as the review documents, making sure that our board is more informed and also better trained, either through KSBA or some other training sources. And we're constantly trying to find additional training sources. And the leadership team there at KDE has been helpful in assisting us with that. So, but yes, definitely more engaged. We've created we tried to make it a 1-pager, but it ended up being a 2-pager that we present to the board on a monthly basis. Kind of gives them a snapshot of where we are on the budget, and they appreciate looking at that, that condensed version more than the 60 or 70-page document that we give them too. But kind of gives them an outline of where different departments are and where we are currently and where we, as we move forward, the percentage of monies that are used at that time.
Extremely helpful. Thank you. If you'll pardon the financial pun, that will pay dividends, I'm sure.
Good one.
Important asset to court there. Matt?
I don't think I have anything to add. We're just happy to see that they're seem to be moving in the right direction, and we will continue to provide updates at each of our KBE meetings so that you all are aware. And I think it's just a good practice and good to have them on here to know that we still care and we're still watching and offering any assistance we can.
Sure.
Oh, wonderful. Thank you so much, Superintendent Bartlett, for joining us. Thank you, Matt, for bringing the issue. Yes.
Also want to emphasize, not only has OFO been a part of the work there, also OCIS and Dr. Foster and also Mr. Ross and his group both are working with Boyd County. And I'd like to applaud Superintendent Boblett and his team for their not only willingness, but their eagerness to work with everyone as they come in. So again, it's also about setting up systems, as we've alluded to here with our communicating with their board, but that work is going in multiple areas within our department. So again, wanted to point that out.
Yes, thank you, Dr. Fletcher, and I appreciate everyone's work. As Mr. Barber said, Dr. Kelly Foster, her team, Che Ritter, Matt Ross, and Marshall Smith, you all have been invaluable to us, and you're either an email or a phone call away, and I greatly appreciate that.
Well, I hope Boyd County knows that we are all in. And wish you continue.
There you go. I've heard that a time or two.
Usually you heard it on the football field or basketball game, but it's had another acronym at the end, I believe, Bill.
Yes.
Thank you so much. Our next item regards an update on Kentucky United We Learn, the study phase, which has been intense, interesting, and continuing to bear benefits. We'll call on Meredith Brewer to make that report, please.
Hello, I'm usually not at this table, so this is a nice change of pace, but excited to come forward with you all today on the status of our study phase. So during the last board meeting, you got an update from Dr. Stafford and from Rhonda about the work to develop the 4.0 prototype, and had the opportunity to provide some feedback on the components contained within. We were able to take that feedback and draft the 4.0, and as part of our ongoing timeline to try to get us to the moon here. Oh, hopefully this will work. Well, possibly.
Hold your mouth right.
I know, right? It worked a moment ago. Hold on. So normally someone would make eyes at me and then I would make, oh, you could just click it forward one time. Thank you, Dr. Pate.
I'll sit over there so you don't have to. Oh, yeah.
I apologize.
We don't trust Jason. It is not that.
Shoot, yeah, I can do that all day long.
I
I can even follow Dr. Thompson when he's speaking.
There we go. Now it's working. Perfect. Okay. It just needed Beth's prompting. All right. I'm getting an echo though, Beth. So I'm not sure if it's my microphone just so are we better now? It's there. Okay. So as we've shared before, we are on our journey to the moon, something that Vice Chair Young challenged the members of the United We Learn Council to endeavor forward on several years ago when the council first launched. So as we work our way to the moon, we have lots of different steps along the way and important moments to celebrate. So we were able to develop that prototype through collaboration with the council, various education stakeholders, including legislators, and we've celebrated before their participation in the past. So we are now entering into that second element, the study phase, where we wanted to engage again with a variety of stakeholder groups to get their feedback on the prototype and make sure that we were being responsive to the priorities that were established by the council and by the board before we move forward with a final proposal. As part of the study phase, we identified 5, Beth, if you could click forward. I don't know why the clicker is not working. I apologize. There we go. 5 work streams for the study phase so that we could sort of divide and conquer. So there was a lot of ambitious efforts that we wanted to undertake, and we knew that we needed to be strategic to be able to pull all of the feedback that we possibly could to inform our next steps. So as part of those work streams, we had identified different audiences and different leads at the department to divide up the work and be prepared to present to the Cool Council here at the end of the month. All right, Beth, next slide. So first up, we had the Kentucky United We Learn Council. As you know, this is a group of individuals who have volunteered to engage with us on this work that represent a variety of stakeholder groups, teachers, parents, family members, community members, legislators. And so what we have asked them to consider as part of this study phase is entering into interviews with role-alike peers. So we want students to interview students, parents to interview parents, and so forth. We've provided for them an interview protocol that has some questions about the prototype and the different components. We've also provided a lot of different resources to help them make sense of what is a really technical proposal that has a lot of really detailed information about where we may move forward in assessment and accountability. So we've provided a lot of resources, videos, and other tutorials to help them, but we want them to be focusing on sort of how is this resonating with the group that they represent, and what are some things that we maybe haven't considered to help inform next steps. You may recall that as part of the 3.0 prototype, we had some study questions that we had come up with that we thought were critical that we answer as part of the study phase. And so rather than share with you the rather large document that has all of the study questions aligned with the different phases of the work, I've kind of pulled a sample guiding question. So for the interviewees, we really want them to be able to respond to how will this new vibrant learning indicator prioritize and advance equity. So we want to be sure that we're keeping that at the forefront. And that's actually a question that the board brought forward at our meeting in August. So next slide, please, Beth. So as part of this work, we knew it was important to have a clear picture of where our districts are right now with this work. We know that there is a lot of outstanding deeper learning work taking place across the Commonwealth, but some of our districts are in earlier days and others have had more time to invest in this effort. And so we wanted to be sure we had a clear snapshot, because ultimately, whatever prototype moves forward into a formal proposal, we need to be reasonable with what is proposed for implementation. So the Division of Innovation is working with our new innovation specialist that we were able to bring in as part of our CGSA grant to do an inventory of districts to determine where they are in district preparedness to implement vibrant learning. So some of the guiding questions that that group is hoping to address are what milestones would indicate a readiness to scale performance assessment statewide, and to what extent are districts ready to implement a VLE indicator. So we know that it is important that we have a clear idea of where our districts are and where they may need support. So the Division of Innovation has those innovation specialists and other members of our team who can help support districts so that they can continue to make forward progress. So that inventory is part of our larger study phase efforts. Next slide, please. It was also a priority for us to hear from not only the L3 districts who have been part of this work from the beginning, but also districts who represented a perspective that were not directly part of the L3 group. So we designed a sample of 18 L3 districts and 18 non-L3 districts to engage in some focus groups. So they were asked to not only complete the public survey that we have shared, and that will be the last item that I will share with you, some exciting numbers on that, but they were also asked to participate in detailed focus groups that were facilitated by the Office of Continuous Improvement and Support, and they had some specific questions that they were asked to respond to. We also invited the members of those focus groups to invite members from their community to participate. So the L3 districts have previously established a set of stakeholders who were part of their L3 efforts that represented community members, educators, and other important partners in the work. But we asked our non-L3 districts to also bring forward some other participants to engage in the focus groups. Some of the questions that we wanted this particular work stream to address were: what role should the state play to monitor quality without sacrificing local autonomy? And what should the state's role be in determining what can be submitted locally, as well as in reviewing the quality of the local data points submitted? So the work of the focus groups is now being evaluated. So we have, I think the important takeaway, a lot of data that we are currently reviewing in preparation for the upcoming Cool Council meeting. And that is a good problem to have, because we have a lot of important perspectives, and it really will help us feel more confident as we move forward. Next, we had technical memos. So we have had outstanding partners throughout this process working with us, experts in their fields, and we wanted to really task them with developing materials that would help us think about reliability, validity, and some of those other important considerations as we move forward. It's great for us to have ambitious goals and to have lofty ideas, but we need to be able to actually make them happen. So our partners were charged with a variety of topics to address, and we were able to have them write some memos to present to us, and the text under there is not correct, so I apologize. So we have 5 different technical memos that were turned into us on October 4th, and so those are very high quality from what we've already reviewed, and very substantial. So the primary audience for those memos is the Office of Assessment and Accountability, and those will really be helpful for our staff members as they think through next steps to support whatever proposal is finalized. But we also want to be sure that those are accessible to the members of the Cool Council as well, because we want them to have the ability to provide informed feedback. So the guiding question for our technical memos was what support will be necessary from the state to ensure information about VLE implementation can be evaluated and reported in a manner that supports continuous improvement. Next slide.
Before you go to the next question really quickly, does that include comparability or is that not a question at this point?
Not at this point. We haven't focused on comparability. Yeah. But that is certainly something that we will be. Yes. Yes. And so just to sort of speak to Vice Chair Young, so one of the things that we have proposed in Prototype 4.0 is to potentially have interim assessments utilized in place of our current system of summative assessments. So currently across the Commonwealth, I'm not aware of any district that doesn't have some sort of interim assessment as part of their assessment protocol. So they're typically given in the fall, winter, and spring. So what is proposed in the 4.0 prototype is to, instead of having those assessments in addition to the summative assessment that the state provides, that the state would absorb the cost of those interim assessments, and that we would support districts in utilizing those and still administering in the fall and the winter, but potentially having the spring administration count toward required accountability reports. So whatever the required content areas that we are required to report currently, which includes reading, science, math, and social studies. However, a part of the prototype was actually removing some of those non-federally required reporting subject areas. That would allow for more responsive instruction by our teachers because it was something that they would have access to the data more quickly. But a concern that was brought up right now, because it really is a district level decision, many of our districts have different vendors that provide those assessments. And so there were some questions about, would districts be able to move forward with their current vendor, which is a system that their students are familiar with? And would we be able to have districts with different assessment vendors that would still satisfy those requirements? And that's something that we think we could potentially put out an RFP to explore that possibility. However, we do know that the current interim assessments, there are none that are currently used that would satisfy all of the federal requirements. So either way, we would still need to have a new assessment in place. So potentially we could have different vendors dependent upon what is sort of produced and what we could have for that would satisfy those requirements.
Thanks for going down that path. I see that the technical memo question was specifically related to vibrant learning experiences.
That's one of many. So we have a full document where we outlined all of the different study questions and aligned them to the different work streams. Happy to share that with the board. I just pulled a sample question. Okay. So actually each of the technical memos had a different set of questions that they were attempting to address.
Not in a hurry, but I would like to see those whenever we have a chance.
Absolutely. So all of the study questions that were in the 3.0 document that the board reviewed in August have been aligned with one of the work streams. So all of the questions and more are being addressed as part of this research.
Super helpful. Thank you.
All right, and the last element of our 5-point work stream is the feedback survey. And so we have really put in a lot of effort to make sure everyone knew that this survey was available and invite them to participate. As I mentioned earlier, this is really technical work. And so we have a resource page on our website where the survey resides that had those additional resources, because we know that people want to be able to respond with as complete of an understanding about the questions as possible. So we had those additional supports, but we were able to broadly disseminate the survey as Board Member Woods requested that we do so. So the survey spoke specifically to the components. So one thing that I do want to emphasize, so the 4.0 prototype was really reflective of a potential combination of components that could move forward into the new assessment accountability systems. But we had mentioned in August as well that there's still a lot of flexibility in how those components are brought together. So we really wanted feedback on the different components so that we could be sure that the elements that were being incorporated into the future proposal were representative of the desire of the community at large. So the survey really doesn't necessarily speak to the prototype in its entirety, but more so the different components contained within. So we have questions about the interim assessments that I referenced, potential vibrant learning indicator and some of those elements. So happy to report that we had, as of Friday, 640 responses representing a variety of stakeholders. Included within that group is 277 individuals who identified themselves as an educator or a paraprofessional. They were prompted as part of the survey to identify the group that they were representing most closely with their responses. So what perspective were they responding to the survey? So we had over 100 school administrators complete the survey, 50 superintendents, and 45 district assessment coordinators. We did only have one student that completed the survey. Our working theory is that maybe Preston Graham has completed the survey. But
whoever filled out that survey probably did a great job. You should really look at their response.
You can isolate that in count.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah.
You should really look at that.
To really emphasize that one respondent. But again, I think this really speaks to the complexity of the survey. We certainly had some individuals start the survey but not fully submit. So that is something for us to keep in mind, that we were asking some really complicated questions of people. So we will, of course, explore other opportunities to be sure that our student voice is represented. But overall, we were really happy with the number of responses that we have. So what are we going to do with all of this data? As I mentioned, the Cool Council is meeting at the end of the month, October 21st and 22nd. Our primary agenda item is to go over all of this data and provide to them what we have interpreted to be the feedback, both quantitatively. So we'll have straightforward answers from the survey. We have lots of qualitative data where we have people who have shared their perspectives on some of the positive implications of some of these moves and also some of the challenges associated with them. We know that change is hard and that what we are asking districts to consider will require a lot of work, certainly in the short term. But what we are trying to do is to maintain our focus on our long-term goals, our journey to the moon. And we really want on the other side of this to have an assessment and accountability system that is meaningful to students, educators, parents, and our communities. So after the Cool Council meets, they'll have a little bit more time because they may identify, like student groups, that we have yet to get enough feedback from to feel comfortable moving forward. So I can imagine students will be at the top of that list. But there may be other groups that they feel like are underrepresented. So they'll have a couple weeks to go back out and be very intentional about collecting some additional data. Hopefully, the week of November 18th, we will have a final version of the prototype for them to consider endorsement. So if the Cool Council members do vote to endorse the formal proposal, it will then be brought forward to the LSAC and the board at the end of November and to the board in early December. The responsibility of the board would be then to approve that proposal. And once we have formal approval of the proposal, which would have all of the different components in their final form, then we would move forward into the advocacy phase. And that's where we're going to have a lot of important work ahead of us where we try to advocate for those changes. There's a lot of potential statutory change that would be required, certainly proposals that would need to be considered by the U.S. Department of Education to make this plan a reality. And it will require us to do a lot of education about what the different components would look like, come up with an implementation plan and timeline. One thing that I do really want to emphasize, so as we go back, Beth, if you don't mind to go back to the timeline, which is the second slide. One thing that we have said is that our goal is to have a proposal by 2026, and that is just the proposal for the General Assembly to consider. That is not when we believe the new system would be fully implemented. And that's something we really want to emphasize to those listening today. We do not anticipate students entering into school in the fall of 2026 will be under the new assessment and accountability system. That is not a reasonable timeline. However, we do want to have that proposal in place for the 2026 assembly, because we know there needs to be a budgetary appropriation for a lot of this to happen. And we know that the 2026 budget session is, although ambitious, a reasonable deadline for us to work toward to have our initial ask to the General Assembly in place. However, the department, of course, will provide all of the necessary supports to districts as we think about what implementation will look like in the years ahead. So I do want to reassure people that we do not believe that the new system will be in place by 2026, but hopefully approved by 2026 so that we can then begin the hard and important work of making the system a reality. Happy to answer any questions that you have.
Thank you so much. Are there questions? Yes.
Yes. So commendations to the team, broad, large team at the department, and especially to the Kentucky United We Learn Council for their courage to step into a really ambitious timeline and even more audaciously ambitious set of goals to reimagine Kentucky's assessment and accountability system. So my question is just a little bit weedy in that while we have this moonshot timeline that gets us before the Kentucky General Assembly with statutory changes and budget asks that accompany the plan, there's this simultaneous pathway that happens with preparing the way for the U.S. Department of Education to consider and ultimately accept our proposal on the federal side of the House. So I'm wondering more about what kind of engagement we've had with the U.S. Department of Education around either IADA and assessment innovation, or just, you know, some staffer at USDOE who knows what's happening in Kentucky. I know we've been working with KnowledgeWorks and other federally connected partners, but what's the state of the U.S. Ed conversation?
So we have certainly had conversations.
And Rhonda and Jennifer are behind you if that's helpful.
I think they will be more than happy for me to answer this question unless they would like to come up. I think they
want to watch you do it.
Plausible deniability. So we certainly have had conversations with representatives from USED about their interest in seeking innovation. Higher ranking officials in the U.S. Department of Education have sort of gone on the conference circuit, emphasizing that the department is interested in innovation. And we've had representatives from the state speak to our interest in pursuing that as well. However, the individuals that help support the approval of our consolidated state plan have not been consulted at this point yet. Because really, once we get to the point where we want to make formal changes to our consolidated state plan, we need to have a more formed plan in place, because really the consultation that they provide to us is sort of how does what is being proposed fit within the parameters that currently exist. They don't have the ability to sort of speak to flexibilities and sort of these larger vision setting conversations. So certainly our policy advisors will be thinking about the appropriate timeline for some of these things, because it really will be sort of a parallel effort to decide at what point we need to engage the General Assembly with specific statutory changes and at what point we need to engage USED. A lot of what is in our consolidated state plan is reflective of state law and is not representative of what is required nationally. So in order for our consolidated state plan to be updated to reflect what we have discussed in this prototype, we need to have state law change. So we sort of need, it's a chicken and egg situation where we need to figure out what needs to happen first, and it is the most prudent next step to work with the General Assembly to get some of those changes done at the state level.
I think you illustrated the yin and yang of that really, really well, Meredith. I'm just wondering if, for our own internal purposes, and maybe even by the late October Cool Council meeting, if we don't need another milestone on our map to think about some intentionality around when the best time to approach USED on the question and where that might land in late spring 2025 or whatever that looks like. It might be helpful to illustrate the duality of the paths that have to converge to become the new Kentucky Assessment and Accountability System. So just a futuristic thought, but not too far in the future.
That's right. And we're very fortunate. Oh, I'm sorry, Julie, go ahead.
And I'm wondering too, if going to talk to our state legislators, if we've already begun some conversations with the USDOE and they're like, yeah, you're okay, you're on the right track.
Yeah.
That might give a little bit more credibility to it in getting some of the
I'm
laws
thinking the same.
changed.
It's double Dutch jump rope, right?
Yeah,
You have to
yeah.
know when to duck and jump right in there. And I'm not suggesting that the team doesn't know when the time is. I'm suggesting that Lou Young doesn't know what the time on that might be. So anything that brings some consensus around jumping in, I think would be helpful.
I think the key there is after we look at the November, when we have this is our proposal, I think that's going to be the best time to say, to what level do we need to engage the USDOE? There may be some ideas there that maybe we don't have to, but who knows what the final data looks like. So once we get finished with that to see what our proposal is, I think that's where we know exactly how we need to engage the USDOE. So the possibility would, in my opinion, would happen probably after that November Cool Council.
Yeah, that sounds reasonable. And we have actually been approached, Kentucky's been approached by California, New York, and other places about how we could make a joint effort to persuade the U.S. Department of Education around further innovation beyond the IADA requirements, which are pretty restraining. And so not only is it helpful to, former undersecretary, not only is it helpful to think about our own timeline and the implications for Kentucky, but I do think we have a national responsibility in that regard too. So.
And I will say that in conversations with CCSSO, they've talked about how they could help if necessary.
Yeah.
So I've had some conversations there too.
And I think that's smart. That's more of a national level engagement, not just the U.S. Department of Ed. Thank you.
And I would be remiss to not point out that we have an outstanding team here at the department, and Rhonda and Dr. Foster, who work closely with USED every day. And so they are the ones to know. They're the ones to know the best time to contact them.
I know you've got them on speed dial. I just didn't know the answer to that.
And I do think that, you do make a really important point, which is that we need to be strategic about all of these different elements, because it's going to be a very important and choreographed routine for us to get across the finish line. So we want to be sure everyone is aware of where we hope to find ourselves successfully on the moon and not in the asteroid belt or somewhere far more catastrophic. We don't, no, we want to land safely on the moon.
Chair Johnson, can I ask a question?
Dr. Poe, yes, sorry.
Yeah, okay, in a follow-up to what the commissioner just stated, with the federal Department of Education, we only really have to involve them in the federal part of the accountability. So if I heard you at an earlier thing say, okay, we could potentially have a federal accountability and a state accountability. The only part that we truly need approval from them is on the federal requirements and any changes within the federal law. If Kentucky itself adds to their accountability, you don't necessarily have to have their approval. Is that correct, Commissioner?
So it gets a little more complicated than that, because our consolidated state plan is required to be reflective of all of our efforts to implement ESEA requirements, currently ESSA. The way that our consolidated state plan is drafted in its current form, it does include all of the elements that are state required. So we speak to our color system, for example, which is a state specific requirement. We speak to the different assessments that we provide that are above and beyond the federal requirements, such as in science, writing. So you're correct, Dr. Poe, that the federal requirements are more narrow than what we have historically implemented in Kentucky. However, our state plan has to be approved, and what's in there right now, if it were to change, would need to be amended to be reflective of what we hope to have at the state level. So it's sort of, we get ourselves into approval sort of back and forth, where when we make a change, then we have to submit a revision to our consolidated state plan.
So I'm going to suggest that we try not to go down a rabbit hole with the possible federal scenarios, because there are a number of developments and potential developments, contingencies that will play out. And so we've got our action plan for engaging, if you will, around the development of a new assessment system. I suspect we need to begin shortly to become much more specific and intentional about the federal engagement and all that it will require, including engaging with our delegation on back home visits and all of that sort of thing. So I think, Lou, raising that federal backdrop, if you will, is very helpful, but I think we need to design kind of a comprehensive picture of what that means in order to really have a productive conversation about it. And Preston, you've had something on your mind for the past few minutes. Share it with us.
So nicely interrupted by Mr. Fletcher, but I'm just once again looking at the results of the survey, and if I'm not mistaken, you mentioned there would be increased efforts to get opinions from the underrepresented, particularly students. I was just wondering kind of do you have like a general plan for that? And also, is there any way I can help? Because I almost feel the need to apologize for the one singular.
How nice of you to volunteer, Preston. So during the Cool Council meeting, they will look at the data and then speak to groups that are underrepresented. I'm only predicting that students will be one of the groups that they want to target. So we have a few weeks built into the timeline where we're going to ask our Cool Council members to be really intentional about seeking out different groups to interview. So they already have those interview protocols, and there is one specifically for students. So if you would like to, I will put you in contact with Karen Dodd, who oversees our United We Learn Council, and we will be sure that you are able to be one of our student ambassadors to get more responses on those questions. Thank you, Preston.
Thank you.
Great. Dr. Fletcher?
If I may, going back to Dr. Poe's question, I think that the level to which we need to engage the USDOE depends on what we're looking at when it comes out in November. So if we're meeting the base federal requirements, yes, we still need to engage because our consolidated plan still has portions currently that has the state intermingled with the federal, if you will, combined together for one system. The obstacles will be much larger if we are changing the federal guidelines or asking for changes in the federal guidelines. So the level to which we engage the USDOE is really going to be dependent upon what our proposal looks like. So Randy, I'll say yes and no to your question. Yes, in that it will be a level of engagement we're meeting all the federal requirements. But if we're looking at something that changes, that asks for changes in those federal requirements, it's going to take a larger amount of engagement, if you will. Would you agree with that, Dr. Brewer?
That's right. And so something that I think Vice Chair Young was sort of alluding to is sort of bigger questions around requirements within, Elementary and Secondary Education Act, which is currently Every Student Succeeds. So they have not reauthorized ESSA in a very long time. And so that is something that it is our understanding that Congress is not interested in exploring right now, but if the opportunity were to come up where we could advocate with other states for some changes that would be more reflective of where we feel like assessment and accountability should be focused, then that would be a whole other effort. And once those federal requirements were changed, then that would give us a different level of flexibility. But what is in the prototype 4.0 and some of the components that we're entertaining really doesn't require any federal changes to laws at that level. It would just be how we are reporting our sort of compliance with existing U.S. Department of Education requirements. So I know we're over time and it's my job to keep us on time, so I should probably I'm happy to answer other questions. We do have an opportunity for board members to ask some questions of staff members coming up. on the 14th. So hopefully you're able to participate in those informal meetings that we have scheduled. Those will take place virtually, and we're happy to address any questions that come up in the interim. But thank you all so much for engaging. It's exciting work. We have lots of really excellent work underway right now across the department. It's really been a collaborative effort. So thank you all so much for engaging.
Well, thank you, Dr. Brewer, for bringing this update report. You can see that we are definitely all in on this. It's just been fascinating watching this dream, this aspiration that we dared to put forth, that we could have an assessment and accountability system that actually served the process of learning, and that we knew that would be dependent on vibrant learning experiences. And we knew that unless it was owned by the very people who are the beneficiaries and the sponsors at the same time, it would not be operationally possible, not even conceptually possible. So we're bringing it all together. And now for our next item, we have another joyous opportunity to recognize an award winner. Dr. Fletcher.
Thank you so much, Chair Robinson. Again, this is another opportunity to emphasize our third goal of collaborations with communities and how important that is. And then when you look at collaboration with the community, it's this award winner today really emphasizes that all-in attitude, and we really appreciate that. So with that being said, the Joseph W. Kelly served as a KBE member from 1989 until 1998 and provided exceptional leadership as its chair for 7 years. He was a strong leader in the fundamental early years of implementing Kentucky's nationally recognized school improvement efforts. A respected business leader and education advocate, Kelly knew firsthand the critical role of the business community plays in supporting Kentucky's public education system. His career exemplifies the significant contributions that members of the business community are making in support of Kentucky students. This award is given in the fall of each year to a Kentucky business person or business who has partnered with a public school or district to provide outstanding leadership that promotes school improvement and student success. The criteria for the award include creating or sustaining strategic partnership between a business and school or district that leads to improved student outcomes, including, but not limited to, post-secondary success and workforce outcomes, and significant contribution to a school or a district that leads or will likely lead to increased or improved educational opportunities for improved educational post-secondary or workforce outcomes for students. At this time, it is my honor to announce the winner of the 2024 Kelly Award for Business and Education Partnership, Meredith Rosansky, Executive Vice President of Operations for the Bowling Green Area Chamber of Commerce. I'd like to take a few minutes to share what the nominators said about our outstanding awardee. And again, we have 2 districts that have partnered to make this recommendation. Ms. Rosansky's exceptional leadership has made a lasting impact on the economic and educational landscape of South Central Kentucky. She has developed and currently leads the annual South Central Kentucky Learning About Unique and New Careers Here, SSCK Launch Program, an initiative that has become a national model for workforce development. SCK Launch represents a partnership between the Bowling Green Area Chamber Foundation, the Bowling Green Independent School District, Warren County Public Schools, and local businesses. The effort meets the needs of both students and employers and includes the Leader in Me program in grades K through 8, a hands-on career fair, a student-led high school leadership program, career shadowing, externships, and the On-Track STEM program built around performance racing. Ms. Rosansky's ability to bring together stakeholders from education, business, and government sectors has been instrumental in the success of SCK Launch. As part of this program, Ms. Rosansky brought together a panel of educators and local business leaders to formulate a profile of the ideal high school graduate. She established the SCK Launch Experience, where regional employers assemble to provide 8th grade students an off-campus event where students explore careers in various workforce sectors. The first experience in 2016 attracted 1,800 students, and since has grown to 3,600 students from regional school districts. Ms. Rosansky's innovative vision to provide a framework for public and private partners to collaborate in providing students learning opportunities while developing the future workforce has permeated our community in a way that will have a lasting impact on thousands of students and hundreds of employers. Again, Ms. Meredith Rosansky, if you would, please. Have a seat and please, any comments that you'd like to add.
If Gary Fields and Rob Clayton were able to be here, it is fall break. They would tell you it's dangerous to give me a microphone. But Madam Chair, Madam Vice Chair, Commissioner Fletcher, Commissioners, I am honored and humbled by this award. But as the award states, it's a partnership and therefore a team sport. So I would be remiss if I didn't mention my partners in crime back at the Chamber, Sandra Baker, who's a lifelong educator herself. And also Olivia Howard, my boss Ron Bunch, and our board and our business community that believe that all the time and energy we spend investing in our K-12 education system is time well spent for the continued success of South Central Kentucky. And then, of course, the educators. I am blessed to work every day for over a decade now with both of our school districts on providing meaningful opportunities for the young people. And the leadership that is displayed from the district offices to the buildings, to the individual classrooms, as Commissioner Fletcher said before, the classified and certified people, it really does take a village. And there is amazing work being done every day in Warren County by both our districts. And so thank you. This award means the world to me, and I greatly appreciate the opportunity.
Congratulations. Photo ops.
Come to you.
Yeah, probably right in front of there, actually.
Zansky, I hope that you can stay and join us for lunch. And as soon as we adjourn, if there is no further business, I would ask for a motion to do just that, a motion to adjourn.
So moved, Madam
All right, is there a second?
Second.
I'm going to declare that we need no discussion and call the question. All those in favor of adjournment, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say no. Thank you so much, board, visitors, colleagues at KDE for a very productive meeting. We are adjourned.